Want to welcome you all here this early morning, beautiful Friday morning in Wisconsin. It's going to get beautiful this weekend, though. Lots of stuff going on in Racine County. Want to welcome you. My name's Dave Blank. I'm the president and CEO of Real Racine. We've been the primary people involved in bringing this in, along with the city of Racine. It's been great working with them. And what we're really looking at here is how can we make Racine a better place? And you might wonder why the tourism agency is the one kind of leading this. It's because the things that tourists look for in a town, if they think it's a cool place, is the same thing that you and I all look for in our place that we live. It's the quality of life, it's the parks, it's the lakefront, it's good walking paths and bicycling and all the cool stuff, and a good downtown. And we're really fortunate here to have a guru. I've seen that word referred to with Roger's name on it many times. How many people saw his presentation at the Golden Rondelle? A good number of you. Okay. Here's the tougher one. How many of you saw him the other night in Burlington? One. Okay. And yeah, they're still buzzing over there. They will be for a while over what some of the comments he made there. Well, this is Racine's turn. And we have a great place here, a ton of potential. And I've seen it over my 20 years here, and a lot of us who have been doing this kind of stuff for a while know there's a ton of potential here. Well, Roger's here to tell us about that. Coming in from the outside, never really been here before. He's looking at this through a first-timer's eyes, but he's done this in over 1,500 locations across the country. So he's secret shopped coast to coast. He's done Canada, he's done some places in Europe. You know, you kind of saw some of the pictures here of as he was going through of other places. Well, he's going to tell us what there's some shortcomings and maybe what we can do to make it better. And so, well, further ado, here's Roger Brooks.
Thank you, Dave. So how is everyone? Doing good? Sorry it was so early, but at least you're here, and that's good. We're going to have some fun for the next couple of hours. This will be pretty fast-paced. I want to start off by saying I've been here since a week from yesterday with my wife, Jane. Jane, go ahead and stand up. She's way back there. And we have been secret shopping you. Yep. And it's really important when you secret shop any place or come in as a first-time visitor to have a woman with you, because they see things a whole lot different than men, and they account for 80% of all consumer spending. I'm waiting. Usually there's a guy in the audience that says, that's all. But it's actually a true fact. They also make 70% of the decision of where we will invest, where we will start a business, or where we will live. And so the women are going, and well, most of the men are saying, tell me something I didn't know. So it's been great. And of course, the first few days we were here, you were in the 90s. What a difference a week makes. Actually, it was beautiful up until like 1 o'clock in the afternoon, like what was it, Monday or Tuesday? And then all of a sudden, whoosh. And so we're going to have some fun. Now, this whole thing about assessments is, number one, you've been secret shop. That's what we've been doing. There was no interviews. We did not talk to Dave. We did not talk to the mayor. We did not talk to anybody in the city. We just wanted to see it just like anybody else. And so they didn't say, make sure you go do this, make sure you go do that, make sure you see this. It was just come in like anybody else. And as Dave said, we've done this for 1,500 communities around the world. And actually we've done quite a bit in Wisconsin. Of course, we worked all of the communities in Door County. We did Wisconsin Dells. We're still working with Wisconsin Dells. We were the ones that helped them become the water park capital of the world. Now we're helping them with their downtown. We're trying to get Wisconsin Dells unstuck from the 70s. But they're doing pretty well. They're doing really well. And of course, we assessed, secret shopped all 15 of the Fox cities. And it wasn't until yesterday that somebody finally said, did you realize there's 2 Fox rivers? And they said, we're on the Illinois Fox River, and they're on a different one. And so anyway, that was interesting. We worked in Shawano County, which I called Shawano, and they said after I was like an hour-long phone call, and I kept going, well, it's going to be really great to work in Shawano and everything. And at the very end, they said, you know what, we still want you to come even though it's Shawano. And then, of course, Wausau, Marshfield, and then that's what we've been doing for the last 8 days here. I have been fortunate enough to keynote at your governor's conference on tourism 4 times. And of course, we've worked in some other areas around the state. So we know a little bit about you, including kind of your competition just south. And when we do this, we always look first at the marketing. Was it easy to get information about Racine? Was it good enough to close the sale? And then how do you stand up to the competition, whether it's Milwaukee, whether it's Madison, whether it is, the towns around you, and was it convenient to get information? And I'm not going to talk a whole lot about that today. We're going to include that when we do an assessment findings and suggestions report, but I'm really going to concentrate on what we did while we were here. Your signage, your gateways, your wayfinding, overall appeal, what was our first impressions, critical mass, I'll explain that. Amenities like parking, restrooms, information, things to see and do while we're here, and then, customer service, what is it like? And the reason I want to concentrate on that rather than the marketing is because here's the deal. Marketing will bring people to Racine once. That's it, just once. The only thing that brings them back is your product. So marketing will get them here, and that is, what is the primary activity that drew them? Whether it's the Frank Lloyd Wright tour at SC Johnson, whether it's your Waterfront, whatever, an event, Kringles, whatever. And then, what else do you have to do for us? If that brought us in, what else is there to do? And then your amenities, was it easy to find parking? Do you have public restrooms? All of those kinds of things that create a better visitor experience. And then the people we interact with. So now, when we did this, we did not do it. You may say, well, gee whiz, this is Racine County Tourism, or Real Racine really funded a lot of this. But the thing is, we did not even come in from the eyes of a leisure visitor. We first of all came in and said, is this a place we would want to live, raise a family, retire, or is this a place we'd want to work, invest in, or bring a business? And I used to do a lot of I used to do recruitment, and so I have a background in that, and then as a leisure visitor, and for more than a day trip. And so the question that we really framed this whole assessment is if I were to get a job at Case, at SC Johnson, or Foxconn, where would I live? And we don't know your area. We didn't know your area. We've been to Kenosha. I sat on the board of the U.S. Travel Association. We did a board retreat at the American Club in Kohler, but I hadn't been here. And so where would I live? So I'd be just like anybody else. And then when Foxconn comes, would I want to invest in where are those best opportunities? And so that is how we framed this whole assessment. Because you know what? Over the next 10, 15, 20, I don't even know what it is, you're going to have like another 15,000 direct jobs because of Foxconn. That's probably going to create another 10,000 indirect jobs for people that come in from the outside that want to invest, whether it's building more retail, it's subdivisions, whatever it is. And so one thing that's really important, for the very first time in U.S. history, quality of life is leading economic development. Jobs are going where the talent is or where the talent wants to be. That was never the case before. It was always, we're on a rail line, or we're next to a major freeway, or we're next to a lake, for paper mills, like in the Fox cities. You name it, that's the way. It was always about natural resources or transportation, and now it's about quality of life. And so for the very first time in history in the United States, community development, that's quality of life, is leading economic development and tourism development. And so we are now in the age of placemaking. And so if you can make Racine a desirable place that people want to live, then the jobs will come here. And I'm sure that played a role in Foxconn coming into Mount Pleasant. But you know, the big deal is this. So still, even with that, then why did Dave and why did Real Racine really take the lead on this? One thing you really need to know is that tourism is the front door to your non-tourism economic development. Any site selector, any investor, any real estate agent that has clients, they're all coming here first as what? A visitor. Is this a place they would want to live, their clients would want to live, employees would want to live? Because the last thing you want to have in Racine County is Foxconn building a big, huge plant and then people commuting from Milwaukee, Madison, Chicago, earning their money and then clogging your streets going back home. You know, I think that part of the reason they are where they are is because they can tap into both those markets. I think you need to say, no, we want to own that market. We want them to live here and spend their money here. And so this is going to be, that's why the timing for this is so good. And why tourism is important. And by the way, it is the purest form of economic development. People come, they spend money, and they go home. And you're already starting to be deluged with visitors from China, from overseas. I mean, you're going to have Corning here. You probably have Nikon here, besides Foxconn. All these people are bringing in tourism. So it's not just leisure tourism. The number one reason people travel is visit friends and family. So the bigger the city, the more tourism you have. Number two is business. And number three is leisure travel. And it is the fastest growing industry in Wisconsin, tourism. But when it comes to tourism, now we're talking about leisure visitors. The first rule is, how do you get them to stop? If they're coming up 32, if they're coming up 94 or down 94, how do you get people to stop? And if you can get them to spend 2 hours spending doubles. But here's the trick. If you can get them to spend the night 4 times. I'd rather see Racine have half as many visitors spending twice as much money, wouldn't you? And so that's the trick. And by the way, the number one activity of visitors, it doesn't matter whether they're here to visit friends and family, they're here for business, or they're here for leisure. The number one activity of visitors is shopping, dining, and entertainment in a pedestrian-friendly, intimate setting. That's it. And that is where 80% of the non-lodging spending takes place. Why do you think they put downtown Disney outside each of its parks? Get that 80%. So that's your downtowns. But here's the clincher. And this isn't just tourism, this is local residents. Of all this spending, 70% of all consumer retail spending happens after 6 o'clock. You have 120,000 people live within 5 miles of State and Main Street. And you roll up your sidewalks at 6. I mean, when I was out in Burlington and Waterford, they like, ooh. And I said, you know, it's not a whole lot better in Racine. That is important. Why you know what? That came from the National Retail Federation. You wonder why Walmart's open till what? Midnight, 24 hours. Even McDonald's are open till midnight. I mean, Walgreens and CVS, all those big boxes, you know, Piggly Wiggly, you name it, they're all open late for a reason. There you go. So that is the big question. And then the best attractions are private sector. Like we did go do the S.C. Johnson, you know, they call it the Right Now, Frank Lloyd Wright tour. That's private sector. And so usually your best attractions, think about it, National and Country Music, all private sector. Napa Valley Wine, all private sector. Wisconsin Dells and 18 water parks, all private sector. See what I mean? Orlando, 170 attractions, private sector. So with that as the setup, here we go. Before we got here, we went online, we went to the tourism website, we got a copy, we ordered a copy, a hard copy of the activities guide. I think there's some copies back there. We start looking for things like, here I did top rated school districts in Wisconsin. That is one of the very first things people are going to look for is top-rated school districts in Wisconsin. They're going to look for schools. And so we start looking at these and list them by county, and you start looking at these schools. This is just what anybody would do. Here's Racine County, and you can see the ones in red over there are kind of challenged. And so one thing is really important that you need to do is provide links to where people can find information about schools. Now, see that little number up there? That is a suggestion. Throughout this presentation, you're going to see suggestions. There's no recommendations here. It would be presumptuous of me to come into Racine and tell you what you should do without ever talking to you first. So as a secret shopper, we come in and we look at it and we say, here's something that we suggest. It's up to you whether you turn it into recommendations. And by the way, you're going to see some things today that you may say, but Roger, we're already working on it. Well, we didn't know that because we're his first time. And if you're working on it, great, you've just been validated. So does that make sense? So when it comes to, Zillow is really big into school ratings and school rating reviews and by the way, 10 is as good as you can get and 1 is as low as you could get. And you do have a lot of schools that are 9s and 8s, which is really good. 5 is average. And so you can see there where you've got them. But I can see in Racine, as you get over closer to the water, you start getting a few 1s and 2s in there as well. But this is what people look at. They look at schools, they look at quality of life. Schools are part of that. And one thing that's really interesting is that, you know what, when school districts are rated down, it's usually not the fault of the educators, it's your demographic. I hate to say it, but usually that's part of the challenge. And so there it is, but of the demographic. Okay, now, for millennials, there are more millennials than there are boomers. And they're in their 20s, early 30s, and you know what? They're going to make up a huge portion of your workforce. They are the future of Racine. And here, in order of priority, is what's important to them. Number 1 is having jobs. And you have thousands of jobs. Even right now, you have jobs that are unfulfilled. So jobs is not a problem. Business opportunities are certainly not a problem. Schools K through 12, I think you got some good ones. I think people might be looking for different districts. Just depending on that. And then next is housing, quality neighborhoods, affordability, amenities like little neighborhood parks or trail systems. And by the way, people always say, oh, millennials, they're moving into downtowns and loft apartments. Yeah, that's true until they get married. The second millennials have kids, guess what? They're like everybody else. They want to move out into the suburbs. They want to have a yard that their kids can play in. And you know who's moving into downtown? Us boomer empty nesters. You need to change that what you think is who's moving into downtowns. These are things they look for. Number 4 on their list is recreation, shopping, and downtowns. And I'm telling you, they want life after 6 o'clock. And you wonder why they're in Chicago or Milwaukee or places where there are districts that are open. And we're not talking the bar scene, we're just talking about life. And then number 5 is diversity. The millennials are the most diverse generation in U.S. history, and they embrace it. That is their list right there. So they will also do things besides schools. They will go right into, housing. And I thought, whoa, you got some pretty high-end houses here. And they will scan down this just to see, what do you get for $800,000? What do you get for $300,000? So this is them. Remember, everybody that's going to move here is also secret shopping you. And so they will look at these. They will look at these and say, this is where we're at for housing. There's what you can get for about $500,000. And it'll go on down. And I was kind of shocked between those two. But this is the kind of thing they do to decide where they're going to live. And what's interesting? You know what? These prices are going to start going up here pretty quick. Because you don't have a whole lot of inventory. And so, just to give you an idea, the other thing they will do is they will go right into a web and they'll type in Racine, Wisconsin, and just look at Google Images, just to get a snapshot view. And so what they do is they just scan through these. And they might open up 1 or 2 You know, like I saw this in there, I went, whoa, that looks pretty nice. And then it was a link, and I went, wow, the condos in that building are in like the threes, you know, 380 for 2,000. And I went, wow. Even Jane and I were like, whoa, this is pretty tempting. You know, and so this is how powerful the web and photography is to people that are secret shopping you. You know, we'll see pictures like this, and we'll see that you got nice trees. You'll see it looks like a beautiful area, beautiful waterfront. So we also do things like look at the city's website. Now, the city's website has departments, government, property owners, community events. You know what? I would change that. It should say living here. And it gives people information about what it's like to live here and contacts and resources for utilities and amenities. And then business. You want to do business in Racine? And then visiting Racine. And these might even link out to a downtown website, to tourism website. But I think in a city, rather than be all government, you need to have a front-facing out there. That's if you live here, if you want to do business here, if you're visiting, if you want information about the city itself, and then events. So I would change that. Because people are secret shopping you, and they want to know more about just what was on the council agenda last week. And then what you can do is go from there to links to like DRC, the Downtown Racine Corporation. And that's where we'll get that taste. Or we will go, visiting, you might link them right over to Real Racine where we see all the things to do. And by the way, it's well done. Remember what I said, tourism is the front door. You know, and we love photos that show people. And what's cool about just these photos, which here is just a snapshot, is we see diversity, we see young people, and it looks like a cool place. And then even your economic development website, by the way, I think your economic development site is excellent. It's one of the better ones I've seen. Is that you, Amy? Okay, way to go. Woohoo! Now, yeah, good job. And I knew Amy because we worked in Tinley Park where she was before she came here. But anyway, it does a really good job because they say, why Racine? They answer the question, why Racine, where the building, where the opportunities are and everything. And so we thought it was actually a very good economic development website. But once again, from the city's website, it should link out to your partners. And so our initial research, which we had several people do, it said Racine, we thought Racine looks really great. But we also had a little deal in there is that if we were raising kids and everything, we might want to be a little bit more particular about where we're going to do that because we saw one rated schools and you know, a few miles away is an 8 rated school. See what I mean? And so that was the 2 takeaways we got from that. So now, since last Thursday, a week ago yesterday, we have been here. And I have to tell you that we flew into Milwaukee and we drove down 94 and we took the exit and we came out to see Racine. And as you can see, you're not on a grid pattern. We have little hooks in roads like that, and first of all, you know, over here this whole green area I just put up, I'm telling you, by the time we got through the green area, we were like ready to turn around and go back. And then you've got roads like, you know, you can come in that way, or you can come in this way, or you can come in this way, or you can come up from Kenosha if you're coming up that way, or you can keep going straight that way, or you can turn, when you come in here, I don't know where downtown is, there's no signs for downtown, and I'm going to get to this in a minute, or we could go straight there. We don't know whether it's north, we don't know, we're just trying to find Racine, we don't know whether we should head south, and if we go over here, we end up down there, and then all of a sudden we have roads that turn, and then you got stuff like that, and then we've got, you know, I mean, it just keeps going on and on and on, and then you've got all these different heights, 11, 20, 31, 32, 38, plus 94, you know, and so you know, it was a nightmare. And so what happened is, as we're coming in, we would come to an area on State or Spring or whatever, and we come in and said, so this is Racine's downtown. And I'm sitting there in the car going, oh my God, what are we going to tell them? Right? I mean, and this is the challenge. So we'd run into some areas and we just go, what are we going to tell? And then we run into another. So we came into the first downtown that was pretty much vacant. Then we come into another downtown that's pretty much vacant. And we're just going, oh my gosh, this is starting to remind me of Gary, Indiana. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. And then we're driving down and we start to see stuff like this. And then we saw a sign that said Root River Trail. So we pulled over on a little side street, got out of the car, looked over there, and I could see the trail out here. It looks like it's going to an empty warehouse. See what I mean? And I'm going, that can't, but then I looked the other direction and it's closed. So apparently the trail's not working. And then I see this over here, this dilapidated boardwalk, and I go, oh my gosh, that doesn't look like very much fun. You know, and so we're really confused. I mean, eventually, a few days later, we found the trail that's back behind there. So just so you know. But this is your first impressions. We see this little place as we're driving around. It says Root River Rec, Environmental Education. The sign, it looks like it's been closed for 25 years. We have a rusted canoe there. You've got even the utility box hasn't had power for, looks like, decades. I mean, we drive in there, there's weeds growing through the pavement. We walk up to the door, and it turns out it looks like they rent canoes and kayaks, but only like one day a week. And we just assume that this has been out of business for 20 years. Am I right? I'm wrong. But what would you think? See what I mean? You have to start looking this. And so this is our first half hour in Racine. You know, and then finally we come downtown and we go, oh my God, whoo! Because we didn't know what we were going to say. And when we saw Main Street, we were like, wow. Because architecturally, you have the best downtown in the state of Wisconsin. Now, you need to start with some work to do. Nobody's ever done. And we're going to get to that. But we just saw great. Now, one thing that was really funny about downtown is the only wayfinding signs we could find was to churches. Pretty much every church, turn right here, it's 2 blocks there. We did find a few signs over to the Frank Lloyd Wright designed buildings wing spread. So it and the churches, and I wonder if there was some influence that played with that. But other than that, we couldn't find anything. And so this was our first impression. You know, I mean, even here, like it says, something parking ramp, Shoup parking ramp, but the text is really small. You can't even read it unless you're on foot. And then we've got another sign. So what happens is, we need another sign. We just tack one on an existing pole. And then we don't know, as we're coming up state right here, we see a bunch of signs. There's no signs that say there's any parking. Yet you know where the parking is? See that little driveway right there? It's right there, but there's nothing that tells you till you're past it. And by the way, on parking structures, you know, you say Shoup public parking, you don't need to use the word ramp. I'm glad you don't use the word municipal parking like they do in Burlington, because foreigners think that's for city employees only. But you do say Shoup public parking. I don't know that people are going to remember the name, but I don't think you need words like ramp. Just simplify it. Because some people call it a deck, some people call it a ramp, some people call it garage. You know what? It's public parking. Make it simple. Particularly with the amount of foreign visitors you have and are going to get. The simpler, the better. And, you know, we do see things like, this is our problem in Burlington. We told them they have to do all of their wayfinding over. Because you can't read it unless you're on foot standing right in front of the signs. And that's a challenge. But once we got here, we saw online that you are doing wayfinding. And you know, not a minute too soon, because we would have given up. I wonder how many people get off of 94, they start coming this way and they go, yeah, I don't think so. And they head down to Kenosha or somewhere else. So the wayfinding, I'm so glad you've done it. And from what I understand, it's already on order. You're really close to getting those installed. I mean, the sooner the better. And if there's anybody that doubts the validity of spending several $100,000 on wayfinding, it's the smartest investment you could make as a city. And this is just the first phase. Hopefully there'll be more. When it comes to wayfinding, let me give you a good example. This is Appleton. And in Appleton, they put up 18 of these signs. They're on existing power poles, but their retail sales services went up by almost 10% just by adding 18 signs. And so that's important. And so online, I was able to find a page of your wayfinding, and I went, yes. And so I'm so glad you're doing that. Now, your initial wayfinding might not be anything. So if the city comes back and says we need to spend more to fill it out, we saw lots of trail systems, but we saw no signs on any trails. We don't know how long they are, what they're called, where they go to, nothing. And so you have vehicular wayfinding. Then you need pedestrian signage. That's Kalamazoo, Michigan, right there. You need pedestrian signage. So when we're downtown, because you have some cool places downtown, like Toad Hall. But if I was on Main Street, I wouldn't even know it's back there. Doing an assessment, we secret shop those streets. And so you need pedestrian signs. You need pole banners should be part of that. District identifiers. We saw signs that said uptown, downtown. We didn't know what uptown was or where it was or downtown. We didn't know because they just kind of point you in a general direction. And once you're there, there's nothing that says you're in uptown. So that's what these will do. Location identifiers like here's Memorial Hall or Festival Hall or whatever. And then amenity locations like parking, visitor information, restrooms, visitor information kiosk, which you have some already, gateways into your towns and districts, and then trail system signage, and then to your attractions. And you know, you can always look to people like Disney, they know how to do this. So there's going to be probably more coming, I would guess. And by the way, navigation systems are not a substitute for wayfinding. We use navigation systems to find things we already know exist. So for instance, we did stay at the DoubleTree. And by the way, this is the only assessments we've ever done where we had to use our navigation system the entire week. Because we just didn't know, which way was the way to, because we're going out to Burlington and Waterfront and by the way, you have a ton of road construction and you don't even bother with like detour signs. You just put road closed, you're on your own, good luck with that. Really? I mean, we go road closed and it's like, oh, thanks a lot. There's no detours. I mean, it's just, so, but here's the deal, is when we see things on wayfinding signs, it tells us things that we didn't know you had. Like Wind Point Lighthouse or North Beach. Had we not been using the visitor guide, and by the way, 5% of people stop at visitor information centers. Still important, but what about those people that are just driving in and they don't know what you have, so they wouldn't search for it because they don't know what you have. So that's really important. This is pedestrian wayfinding in French Lick, Indiana. So, you're already doing this, but I want to validate it plays a role in your branding efforts, what you're about. It is a major component in your marketing efforts. It reinforces a positive experience. By the way, if we see signs from 94 that say Main Street Racine ahead 6 miles, when we come to these other downtown areas, and we see another one, downtown Racine ahead 4 miles, you know what it tells us? Don't judge us yet, you're not there. Right? It does. It's a psychological thing. And that's why it's so important. And then increases spending locally. I mean, it educates your visitors and locals about what you got. It builds community pride, and it's as much a science as an art. This is why Burlington has to start over. I don't know who did their wayfinding signs, but I don't think it was a professional sign company. I think the city contracted with Corbin, which is one of the best in the country. And so it's going to be great. And if you need more help on that, we got a video. You have access. Dave has access to all of these videos we create. So, as part of that, I would also redevelop your gateway signs. These look very carnival and look like 1970, and most of them are rusted. And yet you're saying Racine on the lake. And then we're going, doesn't look that great. If you ever look at subdivisions, the amount of money they spend on the gateways, that's for a reason. So the second we see those, I hope you redo them. And by the way, never more than 8 words on a sign. We have 4 seconds. We're not going to stop in the middle of the traffic, get out of our cars to go read about the Prairie School, St. Catherine's School, and those things. 8 words max. But I would do these. I'd make them more modern. I would make them less carnival looking. And I think you need to tell people what you're about, and I just don't think these do a very good job. Okay? So now, once we did hit Main Street, that was our first thing. We both went, whoo, this is nice. And as we drove down Main Street, we saw this entrance to the waterway, and we were just like impressed. It was like, it was a sigh of relief, I got to tell you. And then I got it, because now we're in real Racine. See what I mean? For us, I go, okay, now I get it. This is the real Racine down here, And so, a couple of things that just absolutely shocked us. We were just absolutely blown away. Remember, we've done this in 45 states and abroad. You have one waterfront hotel, and it's only 3 stories tall. I mean, we were just shocked with your waterfront views and everything that this is the limit of your hotels. And you know what? I know that Mount Pleasant has great hotels. Last time I was here in November, I stayed out in Mount Pleasant. That's great. But you know what? Hotels in downtowns will outdo highway or rural hotels 4 to 1. We want to stay in a location that's within a couple of blocks of your shopping, your dining, and everything, and you have one. We're just shocked. And by the way, we had a good stay there last weekend. They had entertainment out there. It was great. So now once we got here, we got settled in, we started to find things. We decided to start looking for things. And the first thing we did is we started going north, and we found Kids Cove. This is fabulous. And I don't know if it's a city park or what. You know what? If you ask me to find it again, I can't even tell you where I found that. But it looked fabulous. So now we're checking it out. We're just like anybody else, we're checking it out. We did see North Beach, and we thought it was fabulous. What was really interesting thing is that we were out there Father's Day. Sunday morning was Father's Day. There were people, you have like 6 picnic tables out there in this huge park. You know what? There were families staked them out at like 7 in the morning to get one. I mean, why don't you have like 20 or 30? So, that was one thing. I mean, and so they're out there staking them out, and I'm going, really? Then the beach itself, you have one place. You don't monetize. One problem with Racine, you really don't monetize anything. I mean, you do have this right there. And I thought, okay, that's cool. That at least you have that. And I think they're about ready to put up the volleyball nets. We were there on Sunday morning. And but then we could see, and the beach looks fabulous, by the way. But one thing is we see this trail system. I have no idea where it starts, where it ends, how far it goes. I have no idea whether it's just for walking, if you can do rollerblading on it, bicycling. It does have 2 lanes. I assume that's for walking and biking. But there's no information anywhere on any trails we could find. This would be such a great place to say you are on the whatever trail, and and show a little map and show us distances, but no information. And I just felt like this beach, for as incredible it is, and by the way, I've been to the beach in Kenosha. This one's like twice the size. And I just thought, it should be better monetized. I mean, I don't know why you don't have people there. I would do it in the summer. You might have somebody that's there on the beach that rents bikes or rollerblades or does Segway tours. I mean, anything. I just think that you're missing a lot of opportunities for people visiting the beach. And so we saw North Beach, and then we also saw the zoological gardens. We weren't sure where to park because there's some service parking, and then if you go towards the beach, there's a park right across the street, and there's some parking down there. We weren't too sure, so that's not very clear. Hopefully your wayfinding will address some of these. But this place is fantastic. It's just absolutely stunningly beautiful. We even loved the gate that has all the giraffes and all the animals on it. It was just really cool. And you know, one of the really cool things about the zoo is they have wayfinding signs. Yeah, look at that. So, we walked through the whole zoo. We could have spent a lot more time. But I got to tell you that within, so we came here that first day and we camped overnight, and the next day we started exploring it. I mean, all of a sudden we're going, my gosh, this place is incredible. We had a whole different perception of Racine now that we're out exploring. And we didn't have wayfinding, so we just drove around until we found stuff. This was just fantastic. Now, I do have a question for you. Does anything ever happen on this stage at the zoo? When? Why is there not one single sign anywhere that says coming events for 2018 every Wednesday night or everything? You do nothing to invite us back. So there's stuff going on Wednesday night. You have, what are they, concerts and stuff? How would anybody know? See what I mean? So I would say in this area, put a reader board somewhere here that just says, by the way, those are all invitations for us to come back or stay longer. And they're reasons for us to live here. But if you don't even do that, and then across the street in Lakeview Park, you do this. We're promoting, here's one event we're promoting. Here's another, the Greek Festival. Here's another free concerts on Thursdays. Here's another one, there's a picnic. Here's another one. I'm going, look, we put up 10 signs about events. Why don't you just have a reader board there too? And so that's, we just thought, you probably should have reader boards in like 6 locations around downtown and stuff that talk about upcoming events at the zoo. One that should be in the zoo. And then we did accidentally found Wind Point. Now we saw this little teeny sign and we were looking for the lighthouse for like half an hour. Because it's a little tiny sign, it's not a surface street sign. And I imagine the community of Wind Point likes it this way just to keep it down. Yeah, people are already nodding, yeah. And by the way, this blows away anything you'll find in Door County. It's phenomenal. It's just phenomenal. You couldn't help but take postcard pictures when you're there. Beautiful views of the lake, beautiful gardens. And even this, though, you can't buy a bottled water. I thought even if you just put on weekends a little food truck out there and a trash receptacle and let people, Wind Point probably going, not on your life. But, I don't know. We saw the houses there. But as a matter of fact, the house right behind the lighthouse is for sale. And by the way, it's $9.90. We looked at it. I thought, wow, what a front yard to have, right? But anyway, I just thought, just even if you have people here, monetize it in some way. Sell Wind Point Lighthouse T-shirts, something, or there it'd have to be polo shirts, no T-shirts at Wind Point. And anyway, beautiful, beautiful place. And this brings me to something I want you to do. I want you to create a brochure that is the very best of Racine. You need to promote your anchor tenants. Anchor tenants are not tenants that drag you down. They're ones that make you worth a special trip. And I would love to see you do this. When you go online, and this is, Travel and Leisure, they do 15 amazing small town bakeries. People love best ofs. So we were working in Alpena, Michigan, town of 10,000. And so we said, we want you to promote the best of Alpena. And you have to vet them. And I'm even going to give you criteria. And it says selecting Alpena's best restaurants. They used me because they didn't want to pay the politics. That's fine, do it. And so what they did is they promoted, their best ofs. This includes restaurants, retail shops, and activities. There's no lodging in here. Because the most asked question at a hotel front desk is, where's a good place to eat? Don't just hand me a list. Wouldn't it be cool if they said, here's the very best of Racine? And by the way, if you like the very best of Racine, go online. We've got 10 more. See what I mean? so you're not leaving anybody out, but you need to promote your anchor tenants. Now, here's how this worked. They were vetted, I'll show you the criteria, and each paid $400 for their panel. Now, the Besser Museum was really hurting, and they couldn't afford $400, but they're a best of, and so they paid like $200. And this right here is the actual brochure. Because it is so important to promote your anchor tenants. And so I've taken the liberty of helping you out with this. Because we secret shopped a lot of these places. We might not have gotten everything, but we got quite a bit. Now, what they did with this brochure, 10,000 people live in Alpena, 30,000 live in the county. There is about 10,000 households. They printed 20,000. They mailed one to every single house. Snail mailed it in a number 10 envelope with a little card. And the card said this, and I'm paraphrasing. The number one reason people travel is to visit friends and family. We hope that when friends and family visit you, you will share with them the very best of what Racine has to offer. Because we believe that every dining room table should be a concierge desk. Within days, people were coming downtown, walking into one of these shops and going, I got this in the mail. How long have you been here? And the merchant would go, 10 years. Success breeds success. Promote your anchor tenants. You want them to succeed. And you redo this every year. You might add another one to it. If one goes away or their ratings go down, then it might change. The best thing you could do is make it easier for us to have a great time here. It will upscale your visitors. It will have success breed success. And you could do your own criteria. Here's what they used in Alpena. They had to be highly regarded by somebody other than themselves. Like 80% positive reviews on TripAdvisor, Yelp, written up in Midwest Living magazine. They had to be highly regarded. They needed to have good curb appeal. Now, in Racine, I'm going to give you one example that doesn't have good appeal, but they probably should be on here. Okay, that's coming up. But they had to be open year-round in the case of Alpena. They had to be open until at least 7 p.m. And, for you, maybe it's 8 or 9. You have restaurants that close at 8. I'm going, are you guys crazy? The average time Americans ate dinner in the 50s, 60s, and early 70s was 5:30 to 6. You know what it is now? 7 to 7:30. In Western Europe, it's 9 o'clock. We're moving that way, and a lot of your retailers and restaurants are still stuck in Mayberry and Leave It to Beaver days. And so they had to be open till 7 for them. They had to be open 6 days a week. The day they could be closed was Mondays in their case. And they had to be unique to you. We're not putting Subway in there. No offense to Subway or Jimmy John's or other chains. This is the one they did in Iowa in one of the areas that has Pella, and those towns. But this is so important. I think you should market your top 10 restaurants, your top 10 retail shops, activities and attractions. And they don't all have to be downtown. This is Racine. And so I think this is really, really important. And remember, there's no lodging in there because they won't hand it out if other lodging is there. And so, you know what? I would load all your websites with the top 3 places to get a Kringle. Because that's something we looked for. We finally found a place, I'll show you. And top 3 golf courses, top 3 trails. And you might say, here's the top 3 trails. And if you like those, come back here, we'll give you the next 3. See what I mean? And so you can do that with all of these, the must-do activities while you're here. People love lists. I mean, if you do it, Travel Leisure does the most beautiful World Heritage sites. I mean, the next month they might do another one that is, 12 great last-minute Great Lakes getaways, America's best rated trips. I mean, and everybody's doing it. And it isn't just Travel Magazine. Even USA Today does it. You name it. And so people love that. So automatically, we're already in our second morning here. We have to put Wind Point Lighthouse there. We need to put the zoo there. You got to put North Beach Park there. I mean, put Kids Cove Play Park. That's a great park. Now, when we were downtown, we saw this brochure, but there's nothing on it that says it's a best of. So we didn't even know what it was until it was explained to us. But it's got a lot of these. They're on our list too. but it's only on like Main Street. So we think you need one that's a little more community wide, okay? And while we're there at Wind Point, we started looking for houses. And I'm telling you, this gave us, you know what? One of the challenges you have with Racine is when we drove in, we saw so many Dollar General stores, we thought this is all just low income. We started seeing this and we're going, oh my gosh, where did this come from? I mean, this is, Caledonia, Wind Point, North Bay, did I get that right? We see the Shoup golf course, Shoup Park golf course right there. I mean, all of a sudden we had a whole different opinion of Racine. It's like eye-opening. And that's one thing about showing that lighthouse is if you just get people to drive north, and by the way, we could go south too and some other areas, but just by people driving out there, they see a whole nother side of Racine that they probably had no clue even existed. And while we're out there, we did see a wing spread. We never had a chance to visit it. It was closed on the weekend. And it's still on my to-do list because I've always been a Frank Lloyd Wright fan. But absolutely, it should be on that list, even though we didn't get to see it. But, as we're driving around, we see parks like this, and we're just going, my gosh. So there it is, the most upscale so far. I mean, we just went, wow. So, once we did that little area, we thought, okay, you know what? We should go try to find, I know there's an airport in Racine. And of course, there's no wayfinding, so we decided to go find it. But on our way out to find the airport, and you're going to see by the order of these that we didn't really know. We were trying to find it. We did find Riverbend Nature Center. And even this, and by the way, for everybody, businesses, avoid phone numbers. You know what? Nobody calls anymore. You know what we do now? We text people. Is it okay to call you? Right? We do. So it's better to put a URL because people generally, there may be a few people that will call, but most people don't say call. They just give us the URL, we're going to book it online. We'll reserve kayaks, canoes, and everything. And that goes for businesses too. But once again, it looks like a great summer camp. Public welcome, trails are open daily, dawn to dusk. I like words where it says welcome, that's nice. And it looks like a great place. So this is just another, we see this little pavilion here. We don't know if anything happens in this pavilion, does it? And we don't know when, if it's just for summer camps. But it looked like a great place. It was just another one. We didn't put it on the best of list because I don't know when it's open and what happens there. But it's still a great asset to the community. And we did find the airport, and I went, oh my gosh, they even have customs here and immigration. And then we saw Racine Sport Flyers, and we thought, man, maybe you should promote that. And by the way, we're thinking, okay, you're going to have all these international flights coming in here. You've got all these corporate jets and everything. And we could easily see that this is jet capable. I mean, look back there. And so we thought that is pretty cool. But we thought, you know what? You might have another great asset, and that is Sport Flyers. We looked at their website. We looked at what they do. They do instruction. They even do drone training. So if you want to fly drones and do photography, they even offer that. Their reviews were like off the roof good. And we said, you got to add them to your best of list. You need to promote private business. These are jobs. A lot of these are family wage jobs. And what I hear a lot is we can't use public money to promote private business. Give me a break. Can you imagine Orlando? We have 172 attractions, but we can't mention any of them by name because they're all privately owned. We have that big park, with the mouse with the big ears. We can't mention it. Napa Valley, we have 242 wineries. We can't mention by name because they're all privately owned. You know what? Private business is the lifeblood of economic development. And tourism. I'm in economic development. You say, well, we have some big companies, but we can't mention their names like Case and SC Johnson because they're all private. You leverage those things. Success breeds success. While we're out there, we did find Quarry Lake Park. And by the way, yes, it's under construction. The one suggestion I had is, when will this be done? You know, it doesn't, there's no signs or anything that says we're closed, we'll be opening in August or next year. The one thing Racine does, or the county, I think these are county with those wood signs, but the thing is you never ever invite us back. Now, I think what they're doing out there, by the way, this lake is gorgeous, even though they've drained a lot of it down to do all this work. But it would have been great if there would have been a sign somewhere that says when we're going to reopen. You know, and then right across the street you have dog parks. What's really cool about these dog parks, you can have them by size of dogs. These are awesome things that you have that if we had not been doing an assessment, how many people looking for a place to live would have any clue you have any of this stuff? I mean, it's just really cool. And by the way, we put Quarry Lake Park and we put the dog park, since they're close to each other, together. But it's going to be awesome when it's done. I love it. You know, you can't jump off the cliffs. We saw all that. But it still looks like a cool park. And by the way, before you pummel people with a bunch of rules and regulations, why don't you say welcome? You know this, know that, know this. Cliff jumpers will be arrested. And we have so many, we have to start stacking the rules on top of other rules. I mean, really? You know, you drive in, and number one, you get this one over here that's 15 miles an hour, and no dogs. There's a dog with a line going through it. And then to reinforce it, we have no dogs, no pets, no anything. And then if you don't get that one, we got to hear the dog parking is over there. And if you want this parking, it's over there. And then we have that other thing I just showed you with a bunch of rules. It's like, really? Wow. So the Racine Gestapo runs, I think it's the county, right? So anyway, it's just like, come on. You know, you can do please enjoy your time at Quarry Park. And while you're here are the rules. We don't allow pets. We don't allow this and this and this. No alcoholic beverages, whatever. I think the rules are fine. But rather than just bombard us with something, we never say enjoy your time, I think it's too bad. You know, I mean, it says like dog parking, go somewhere else because we don't allow dogs in this park. So while we're there, we did see the Racine Country Club. Looks very nice. You know, we did see some people walking in going, no, we didn't. I'm just making that up. It looked very nice. We got our concierge out there waiting and everything, but it looked very nice. But what's interesting thing, we had no clue you had this. No clue. It's phenomenal. I mean, we were just blown away. Once again, no wayfinding. We didn't know. We just didn't know. You know, and so we went online. They have a fantastic website. They've got all kinds of things going on there. I mean, just a great asset that gives you cultural depth. How many people in Wisconsin know that Racine has as much cultural depth as that? When you tell people you're from Racine, what do they say? I'm so sorry, right? You need to change that. You change it by just, look at, if you promote those things, I'll bet you 99% of the people in this state, well, okay, 90%, have no clue you even have this stuff. And I'm just warming up. Because right next to that, you have an incredible art museum. You know? And I mean, it's amazing the stuff you have that we had no clue you had. And so, of course, we had to add it to your best of. And then while we were out, we decided, we did go online, we did book the Right Now tour. And this was like on Sunday afternoon. I think it was on Sunday afternoon, Father's Day. And we figured, well, there'll be about 10 of us. There was like 100. As a matter of fact, they have groups of like 24. They had several groups doing tours. I mean, this place, it's busy. It is, I mean, this is just us waiting for the tour. We're walking over there. I wish they would relax the photography a little bit. It's like I'm carrying around a big camera and the security guard's just eyeing me. Make sure I don't take any interior photos anywhere. You know, but anyway, it was an incredible tour. I think Andrew was our guide. He did a great job. It's an hour and a half. It was phenomenal. And one thing I like, this is a Frank Lloyd Wright tour, so it wasn't a big sales pitch about S.C. Johnson. But if I go back a couple of slides to here, there's a display case there. And when you're walking in and you're waiting, you see, I had no idea S.C. Johnson was Windex and Pledge and Off and all those. I knew they made a lot of stuff, but it really put it to, so we already got that pitch right there. So I think it was fantastic. Absolutely everybody should do it. And the fact of the matter is it's free. And by the way, almost everybody on this tour was pretty upscale, which means these are people that have money to spend. And that's what you want. And so you don't want them coming in doing the tour and then say, well, let's leave. The other thing that we saw that wasn't open, but it was so highly rated and everything, was hot shop glass. Yeah. It looked really, really awesome. Now, it's not easy to find, but once we found it, we couldn't find any parking, and it says closed, and then there's like 100 words of little tiny type. There's nowhere to park, to get out, walk up to the store, and so I hope they do hot shop glass, and here's our hours in bigger letters. Or even just a URL, but if they do classes, it looked phenomenal. Once again, you're seeing a tremendous amount of cultural depth that we had no idea Racine had. If you start putting these things front and center as a city, did you know we had this and this and this and this? People, mouths are going to open. You know, I remember way back in the old days, Kenosha was the dive and Racine was the happening place. I don't know what happened, but somewhere along the line it kind of reversed. But you've got it here, they just don't know it. What they do is they drive down State and Spring, they see those older parts of downtown, and they're judging you. And so, pretty cool. You know, and of course we had to get Kringles. And so this seemed to be the closest one to where we were staying there. I don't know, but the O&H, so we went there. I don't know too much about where they are, but I got to tell you, this shop is phenomenal. I mean, they've got great home accents in there, and I'm telling you, they have a little breakfast. You know, we had a breakfast sandwich in there. It was the best we've ever had. And we're on the road 250 days a year. I mean, it was phenomenal. Who knew? And of course, we did buy a Kringle. It took us almost all week to eat it, and it was awesome. And so I put down, you know, we put them as the best of. Now, I know there are other places that, you know, and I don't know if I got that right, but is it H&O? Is it O&H? Okay. Well, that's probably good. I need to change that so we get past the ho. But here's the scoop. You've got all of this stuff. And by the way, I'll fix that. And so it was a phenomenal place. You got all of this stuff. I mean, just this, if people had any clue that you had this stuff, they'd be going, that can't be Racine. It's phenomenal. And we haven't even talked about downtown. And so the next up, we decided, you know what? Let's talk about the waterfront. So we did see the condos. I mean, the waterfront is gorgeous. And you know, one thing that we absolutely love about Racine's waterfront is that if you're in Kenosha, they have a gorgeous waterfront, big marinas and everything, but the gap between it and the downtown, you have to walk like a mile on grass, right? Here it's an intimate setting. We loved your waterfront because it felt intimate. From the DoubleTree, we could walk all the way down to Reef Point Brew House. We could walk all the way down to the park where Rock the Harbor was. We could walk all the way down to the college down there. And it's all like 10-minute walk. And we could walk up just 2 blocks. And we're on Main Street. Very cool. Loved it. We just absolutely loved it. I mean, there's little things. You know, we were out here just starting to photograph it when the clouds came over. And so we never got to finish the job looking out here. But even the breakwater walkway, I mean, this whole thing is just absolutely phenomenal. We loved it. It just felt intimate. It did not feel, and I don't want to disparage Kenosha because I think Kenosha is a great city. but it's so big and spread out and everything, whereas this had this really nice, intimate feeling that we thought was really, really awesome. So it's totally different than Kenosha. It's a different experience. The marina looked great. Just everything about it. Saturday morning, you had the lighthouse run, I think it was, or the lighthouse walk and run, been at YCM. It was packed. And people were having a great time. And we just absolutely fell in love with Racine. We went 180 degrees from what we thought we were going to get in Racine. And we've only been here a day now. And so, we ended up eating at the Reef Point Brew House a couple of times. We went there at Father's Day. It was like 10 minutes to 8. And that kitchen staff had been working till like 5 in the morning. It was Father's Day. They were slammed. We got there at 10 minutes to 8, and they said, we're really sorry, but we're going to close the kitchen at 8. And I said, well, you know what? If we decide that's something like ribs or something that's probably already prepared, would that be all right? And they said, absolutely, come on in. They said, come on in, take your time, don't hurry, but you're the last ones. We went, yes. And, they were going to give their kitchen staff a break, so they were closing a little early. I thought it was awesome. We ate there a couple of times. You can't beat the scenery, and the food's good, and so, of course, we put them on the best of list. But here's the other thing about the waterfront that just absolutely shocked us, is that your entire waterfront is primarily parking lots. That goes against every single rule of highest and best use. It's just ridiculous. I understand parking, but really? You know what? You have parking structures. It's worth a 2-block or a 1-block walk to the water. We're just shocked. So, there's little things. We saw, the college, I'm thinking, really? Colleges, they don't want you looking out the windows. They want you studying. And so even most of the businesses at Waterfront aren't there, because of the waterfront. They can't utilize it. And so we just thought, wow, I don't know what happened here. But we kept going, okay. So we've got this whole thing here, and it's unprogrammed. We were here for Rock the Harbor. We'd ask locals, does anything ever happen down there other than that event? They go, no. Now, they're probably not right. But we just thought, look at all that. That's almost all parking, and by the way, we love parks. I'm not saying get rid of your parks. And we were here for all 4 days of Rock the Harbor. And by the way, other than the last act of each day, it was in the 80s, and there's nobody there. We're like, oh my gosh, I feel so sorry for the promoter or whoever put this on, because this is like, there's acts on the stage, and we counted like 50 people. And we just went, that's really sad. Pretty light attendance. The last show of every day, Eddie Money, Dockin, those were pretty packed. Because we could hear them down at the Doubletree. And by the way, we didn't see it as a negative. We loved the fact you have live music. And so we did see this. It would be, if anything ever happens here, add a reader board. Here's upcoming events. Here's what happens here every year. Invite us back. And for the people that are looking for a place to live, if they see that there's stuff goes on here year round, or at least in the rest of the summer, it's just another reason to live here. And then, by the way, the splash pad, first of all, it's in the absolute worst location ever. Because, and number one, it was it wasn't running on Saturday. I don't know why. Sunday it was running in the rain. But one thing we noticed about this splash pad is that there were people in the street all the time on Sunday. And I just thought, why is the splash? There's no food trucks. You can't monetize. You can't buy a drink. There's no picnic tables. It's more of a water feature than a place people would hang out. It'd be a great opportunity for street vendors and stuff. But you know what? We did see Smoked on the Water. We went over there. They had live entertainment. But once again, when we were there, we never saw more than like 30 people. You know, beautiful weather, beautiful waterfront, live bands in a couple locations, and nobody's there. We don't know why. But it kind of surprised us, that with everything going on. And then the other thing that kind of threw us for a loop is the skate park. We always believe that you put skate parks in neighborhoods where people live and not on the waterfront. But it was being used. We never saw more than like 3 people there at a time. But I just thought most of them are youth. I don't know how they get there. Their parents drop them off or whatever, because it's not in residential. So we thought, boy, that would be better suited there. Now, when we were there, we did see, of course, Festival Hall there. And there was a wedding there that weekend, last weekend. But we went online. We could find hardly anything ever happening here. It's got, fences all the way around it and everything. So we didn't even know, was it privately owned, privately run? We had no clue. And you know what I thought is, you've got kind of a gap. You've got the waterfront, which is gorgeous. Not very well monetized. You have Reef Point Brew House and a gift shop out there, but not a whole lot of monetization. Then you've got the street kind of in between that this is on, but it's mainly kind of parking and stuff. And then you've got Main Street. We thought, man, you need to do some kind of commerce. And so we thought, if this isn't used that much, I think this would be a really cool. Well, first of all, obviously nothing ever happens here for the public. So it must just be a private venue. I mean, what would you think? And then you know what? I have to tell you, I came from the concert industry and I went, that's never going to work. The roof is about 20 feet too high. It doesn't have any ways to mount lights, speakers, or anything. Even the lawn area, we've got this like jagged thing comes right in the middle. The fence comes in and out. And so it's like we tried to shoehorn this in here. And I just thought, okay, that needs to be redone. Could be a fantastic amphitheater, but I don't know who designed it, but I came from the music industry and that doesn't work. This is why when we're done, we have to leave town really quick. So, and I thought, what if that became a year-round public market? Wouldn't that be cool? You know what? We're originally from Seattle. I did my internship for the Seahawks. And so I was always part of that debate when Mike Holmgren left the Packers to come to Seattle. We got Matt Hasselbeck. But just want to let you know that we do have Russell Wilson. But it's been a good rivalry. I love the rivalry between the Packers and the Seahawks. But anyway, in Seattle, of course, we have Pike Place Market. You heard of it? They throw the fish. Guess what? Pike Place Market is the most visited attraction in the northwestern 5 states. I thought, man, if this was a public market, you have all these outdoor spaces that you could put so the weather wouldn't be a problem. You'd have all kinds of vendors in there. You could have chainsaw carvers in there. You could have part farmers, right? You have a big tent. I don't know if that's coming down or if it just stays up. I mean, everywhere we went, we just thought, wow, this could be an incredible year-round public market that acts as an incubator. The general rule for these is like 1/3 locally produced prepared foods, like paninis and cheese and things cheese would be good, you're in Wisconsin. And then raw foods, and then 1/3 handcrafted, jewelry, gifts, shirts, home accents, those kinds of things. We were going to suggest that in Racine, because you know what? Racine goes to the farmer's market in Kenosha. Want to turn that around. And so we thought we were going to recommend you do something like this. These have all glass garage door. In the summer, they all open up. And you have your market in there. This one shows what it would be like. And you could clear it out for different events. So even that market doesn't have to be year-round. You could say year-round market, but during the holidays, we're going to do a Christmas tree forest, or we're going to clear it out and do job fairs. But it would be a kind of a combination market hall. And so we thought, man, if you do something like that. So this shows that building, how it would be. And by the way, they're going to build one of these in Wisconsin Dells. And so you can see all those little gray booths. There's like 85 booths there, but you can clear it out, and then you've got room for all kinds of other events. But when we went online and tried to find what happens there, we couldn't find hardly any public events. And so we just thought, maybe you guys could be better by turning this into, and by the way, even with those small businesses in a year-round public market, the idea is to have them grow so well that they move to an inline store. You've got several districts that have nobody in them. And one of those could be an arts district, one of them might be a nightlife district, but this is where they incubate, this is where they start. So anyway, because we did go online and then we saw that I think the city owns them. We have 3 great venues, 1 beautiful location. I think that's great. But when you view upcoming events in this building, Rotary Park, and Festival Hall, wasn't a whole lot. And I thought maybe you have too many I think you need convention space, but I think maybe you do need that. But I thought, well, maybe you have too many of these public spaces like this, to really warrant keeping them busy. So now remember, these are suggestions. They're not recommendations. But I think it's something you should consider. And then I even thought, well, do a market feasibility study. Because that impacts, you've got all the parking around there, that could be an incredible draw. And it monetizes this into the waterfront. And so I think that's a great idea, and there's your market area, you've got all the area around it that you could stage with events and parking and everything else. You've got all of this. I don't know if it's all public parking, but once again, your waterfront is clear full of parking lots and nothing monetized. You have this incredible waterfront. What do you have? Reef Point Brew House and the gift shop there. Is there anything else that's monetized on the water? You're missing a lot. And so, we started doing, I don't know what we would do without Google Maps these days. But we just thought, man, that's the lot behind the DoubleTree. And I kept going, you've got these spaces and there's nothing going on them. And I just thought these might be some pretty cool opportunities for investment, because investment ends up being tax base. And by the way, over here on the river, you got a couple little cool I think there's a little bar restaurant there and another one right up here. That's pretty cool. They light up at night. Love that kind of stuff. And so anyway, there those are. We thought that's really cool. You can see them across. So now let's talk about Main Street. And by the way, I'm not quite done with the waterfront, but I'm coming back to it. Here's the deal. You have the most stunning downtown Wisconsin, hands down. And I would say that in Milwaukee. I would say it in Wausau. I would say it, we've been in most of them. I'd say it in Madison. This Main Street, these 4 blocks, I say the bookends are Dewey's and Jimmy John's. But in those 4 blocks, the architecture and everything is absolutely stunning, and you have some really great shops now. And so we just thought this could be the showcase in Wisconsin. Look at this. It's phenomenal. However, I think there's some things you need to do, okay? And by the way, it even extends up the side streets. I think this is State Street. You go up a block, and 6th Street, that's 6th. I think it's starting to do that, and I think that's really cool. But I would still probably put the emphasis on Main and then maybe up 6th a little bit. And here's the heaviest suggestions I'm going to make. And I would call these recommendations, even though I haven't talked to you first. And this is why I'm not going to tell you where our car's parked, because I do want air in the tires when we leave. The very first thing I would do is take Main Street back from the state. You know what? Sunday, we went downtown. We decided, okay, we got to drive down to Kenosha. I just want to see what's happening in Kenosha. Drove down to Kenosha. There's probably 25 sidewalk cafes, people everywhere. Come back to Racine. there's 100 people walking up and down Main because you can't even do sidewalk cafes. You need to get that street back. And we've worked with many departments of transportation. They own Highway 32, and you need to get it back so that you're in control of your own Main Street. Because I'm assuming that's why there's no sidewalk down. I mean, somebody said, you know what it takes just to put a table and a chair out there? That's ridiculous. Now, we have worked in many other states. We just had this conversation in Utah, where every department of transportation has two primary functions. Number one is public safety. Number two is moving traffic. And in Utah, we sat down with the governor, the lieutenant governor, the tourism director, and DOT, and we said, you need to add a third one called economic development. Why is it the highways bringing you to downtown are wider than the street, or narrower than the streets in your downtown? So what you do is we come into downtown, and now all of a sudden we have 4 lanes, 5 lanes if you include the left turn lanes. So it's a great reason to blow through downtown rather than slow traffic down. Congestion is a downtown's very best friend. It is. So once you get control of this back, and you know what? There you go. There is nothing more important in Racine than control and development of Main Street, period. It's your showcase. The next thing I would do is narrow it down to 1 lane each direction and create angle-in parking. First of all, with angle-in parking, retail sales will go up nearly 20%. How many of you go, yeah. How many of you go, oh, parallel parking, yes! Right? But you know what happens with angle-in parking? We're driving along and say, oh, that's a cute shot, pull in. Now, some people say, yeah, but that's dangerous when you back up. You know, I keep going, you don't understand. It's a federal law that cars have reverse lights. We can see those. And you know what? If it gets people to go 20, fantastic. More angle-in parking. Plus, you'll get a third more parking. Plus, you could add a bike lane. We can bike your waterfront and not spend any money, and wouldn't it be cool if we could bike Main Street and spend money? See, so I would absolutely do that. Absolutely. You know what? We did a 7-year study where we surveyed 2,000, biggest study ever done in the country, 2,000 downtowns and downtown districts. And out of that, we found the 400 of the most successful. And you know what? All 400 of them had 2-lane Main Streets. All 400 of them. And so, I mean, look at these. It makes it even more intimate. You know, this is Lawrence, Kansas. I mean, look at this. Notice they have angle-in parking, narrow streets, wider sidewalks, bike lanes. There it is, 18%. And you get a third more spaces. You know, and so, you know what? And these days, people want out of their cars. You know, when I turned 16, that day, by God, I'm down there to get my driver's license. You know what? Only 70% of the millennial generation even has a license. You're forcing them to live in urban areas when they want to live here. But you know what they want? We all, boomers, Gen Xers, millennials, we all want out of our cars in a more pedestrian experience. You know what? This is Greenville, South Carolina in the 70s. Now, it is, by the way, the population is 80,000, very similar to it in many ways. And you know what? And look at the Main Street. This is it. I mean, you can see it's got like 5 lanes, no street trees, anything else. This is in the 70s. This is what they did in the 80s. Notice angle-in parking, wider sidewalks, 1 lane each direction. And this is what it looks like now. Now, when they first did that, people said, well, you put in the street trees, you're going to block my signs. And then Public Works, of course. Public Works says, well, you know what, the roots are going to uproot the sidewalk. Here's me giving Public Works a bad time. They have the most unthankful job because everything's underground. But in their case, it's going to clog up the storm drains, on and on and on and on. Well, you know what? the increase in retail sales and property values downtown far outweighed the additional cost of maintaining the trees. I mean, it's phenomenal. And you know what? It's probably the best downtown in South Carolina. I mean, we're talking Charleston. This is better. And so they've got nice wide sidewalks. I mean, they've got, sorry, this is a little bit dark, but they've got lots of sidewalk cafe dining. They created little places for street musicians all along their main street. It is phenomenal. It works. And so narrowing that street down and then adding street trees can make all the difference in the world. Now, another thing I would do is get rid of the stupid one-way streets, go back to two-way. So, if you narrow your street down, and Wisconsin Ave, if it's two ways, you give people an alternative, right? So if it's two ways, if the Main Street is only 2 lanes and you have a lot of traffic, they can always move over to Wisconsin, and it would be 2 lanes. You know, I think, you know what? One-way streets were a thing we did back in the 60s and 70s. Well, if we make this street one way, it'll revitalize that block. It never worked then, and it doesn't work now. And by the way, doing these changes I'm telling you right now will make no effect on your wayfinding. So it doesn't mean, oh my gosh, do we have to, no, you do your wayfinding anyway. And so anyway, I just think that doing this, you'll help get things developed, but it should be 2-way streets. For the sake of Toad Hall and the other business on 6th, on the businesses back here, I just think you need to do that. You know, and things like, we actually love the drawbridges. You might go, oh my gosh, they're a pain. But we love them. It's cool. You know, we watch a little sailboat mass go by as we're sitting there, and you know, and at first I gotta tell you, we drove up and went, oh my gosh, not another street closed. And I said, oh, that's the drawbridge, you know. So anyway, you do have some great visitor information kiosks. I think they're great. The only thing I would do is you have posters in there. I would do one just each year, you know, and that just says, here's our calendar events for the year. And you do it January, February, March, April, May, June, July. And you can even do second weekend, third weekend if you don't have dates, so that people can come in rather than just have a few posters. I think it'd be a lot easier and people can see everything that you have going on in Racine. I think these kiosks are fantastic. I would just make it a little more organized rather than just put things in there. So I want to talk about parking for a minute. You know, and the first thing I will do is say that when we arrived here this morning, we went into the parking garage. It says public parking, but we drove in there and it's all reserved. That's not public parking. I mean, we drove down below, it's all reserved, every space. We drive in the main level, it's all reserved. Is there any public parking in that garage? What? At the very top. And there's no signs that say drive all the way to the top and you'll find public parking. And by the way, I would always let the public that's spending money park in the prime spots and let the employees and everything. I mean, you may have condos and everything, so I don't know all the backstory, but there was nothing that said there was any, but you just drive around and all you see is reserve, 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 reserve. So we went out and parked on the street. Now, one challenge I have, I love passport parking that you use, and we help get that going in Wisconsin Dells. However, one thing that's kind of a challenge is this started at 7:30 and you can't even feed your meter out there digitally until 8. So I would like to write a letter or get passport parking and say you should be able to feed your meter before 8 and have it start at 8. So what, in this case this morning, we started at 7:30, so I gave Jane my cell phone. I took a picture of the meter so I'd have the space number. See, you shouldn't have to do that. And maybe there's a workaround about that. Now, one thing, and is there a workaround? Amy's nodding her head. No. We have the same problem. Yeah, the same problem, okay. And so anyway, and one thing I kind of like is the average person spending time in downtown 4 hours. 2-hour parking is a good way to kill a downtown. So our rationale is we cannot get our employees to park somewhere else, so we're going to punish our customers instead. Really, how's that working for you? Now, one thing is about passport parking. We are parked in a 2-hour space out there, but we're paying for 4 hours. So I don't know whether we're going to get a ticket because we went past 2 hours or whether we're going to be okay doing 4 hours because passport parking lets us do 4 hours. These are some of the little confusing things. If you want people to have a good experience, you need to make easier. And so there you go. 2-hour parking dramatically reduces spending and repeat visits. So here's the point. If you insist on 2-hour parking, at least tell us 2-hour parking here, all day parking, make the next right. I always this has arrows going straight, right, left. I would always have it always make people turn right. It's easier for traffic. But if you do 2-hour parking, tell us where we can park all day or for 4 hours. But that's the thing. If we're here for a movie and dinner, I mean, we walk your downtown, and when people are doing this, looking at where their 2 hours is, they're spending less money. And you know what? They don't go back and move their car to another lot. They leave. You need to stop that. And so, I have no problem with 2-hour parking as long as you say our garages, 4 hours to all day. I don't know what they are. But if you do that, then it incentivizes people to use your garages. So, you know, I would actually get rid of all the coins. I just get rid of the coins. Because when we got here, I'm familiar with passport parking. Jane, my wife, isn't. So for her, if you're not familiar with it, she would go on and say, now, where do I start? Where do I get an app? What do I have to do? And then when I showed her how it all worked, she goes, but the time on the meter didn't change. Well, it doesn't. Well, then how would parking enforcement know you paid? See what I mean? And I know the answers to that, but the normal consumer wouldn't. So in places like Wisconsin Dells, we just got rid of the coins. Number one, it reduces the time for maintenance and grabbing the coins and all of that. And so in their case, look, they have kiosks. It's even solar panel. So if you don't have a smartphone, you can always walk over to the kiosk. You can put a credit card in there. You can put cash in there. And then you just put the ticket inside your car. So it gives you that alternative. But in Wisconsin Dells, that's what we did. There's no meters. That's what you get. That's the way you should go. Just get rid of the headache. I mean, the last thing you want is people going into merchants like they used to say, can you make change? I need a bunch of quarters. You know, and so just do that. That makes that's great. And by the way, pay using your phone. Here's the QR code, easy to get an app. So that's what I think you should do. You know, because the first time I did it, now I just open the app, I go zone 10, space 184, 4 hours, $2.35, and then done. So, and by the way, this is Greenville, South Carolina again. Parking is always free. And look at this, courtesy of Independence National Bank. They even have merchants and banks and stuff will actually pay the city what they would normally get for parking on a weekend because their clients are the retailers in downtown to incentivize people to come downtown. So, the last thing I will say about parking is that public parking is an amenity just like your sidewalks, downtown beautification, no more. And by the way, revenues generated for parking should be reinvested into the area where they were generated. You still need to take out the cost of maintenance enforcement. So there are some costs associated. But I always think that parking is an economic development activity. It's not meant to be a general revenue source. And by the way, I think your parking rates, you know, so there it is. It should never be considered a general fund revenue source. And by the way, I think your parking is too cheap. You know, no applause from that one, right? You like that $2. But this is what we did in Walnut Creek, California. We did $1 an hour up to a max of $3. You know what we found out? Is we started interviewing people and they said, well, yeah, it was up to $3, but we decided to stay longer because after that it's free. It incentivized them to stay longer. And they could stay all day if they wanted in parking structures. And so I think that's really cool. I think $2, you know what's interesting? We stayed at the DoubleTree. And we parked in the parking garage and you pay $2. Every time you go in and out, you have to pay $2. I mean, that's ridiculous. So we walked in the DoubleTree and said, well, wait. You could buy a 7-day pass. It's $3 a day. Now, they're obviously making a buck on it, right? $3 a day, but it's a 7-day pass. You know what? I was thrilled to pay $3 and just use the same ticket for 7 days. Here's my problem. It doesn't work in any of the other parking garages. Come on, you guys. Let us enjoy all of downtown. So it worked in that garage, but when we went to the other one over at Shoop or somewhere, we couldn't get it to work. It just spit it back out. So I don't know why or what, but I think it would be great if they worked everywhere in downtown. But you know what? That was really cool. I like the ability, and we wouldn't have known that. We were paying $2. We go out, we come back 2 hours later, pay another $2, and so it was good to know that. So anyway, and so the next thing I want to talk about, so there you go on parking, is blade signs. Now, can you tell me what's in any of these shops? Here's the thing. When we drive down the street or we're walking down the sidewalk, we see signs that are perpendicular to us, blade signs. And we're not looking through our car windows or walking out into the street to see what's on the front of the buildings. We're looking for blade signs. There's nothing that gives me incentive to walk down the street because I have no idea what's there. There were many of your businesses we probably never went in because we didn't know what you had. There's no blade signs. I mean, even here, one of our favorite places, Uncorked, the only way to see what's in the store is to go out in the street and look above the awning because there's no blade signs. All you need is a little blade sign right underneath that awning. And by the way, fantastic store. Really a great store. So glad to see it downtown. And you know what? Is he here? Where is he? Oh, there he is right there. Way to go. And by the way, we walked into his store and he said, oh, you're Roger Brooks. I went, rats, Ben, we've been caught. So, but you know what I like is Monday, Wednesday, 11. I wish it was a little worse. But you know what? He has some days he's actually open till 8. Thank you so much. The problem is you can't do it by yourself. You need everybody to do this, but at least that's a great start. And by the way, you can see that even from the road when you're walking by. Remember what I said about hot shot glass? So anyway, but he does a really great job there. And so, of course, we put Uncorked up there. I did spell that right, didn't I? Okay, we double checked. So, and by the way, encourage businesses to use these blade signs. I mean, here they use the banners right there. It's good. Plum gold, that's good. And so a few of them do it. But these are blade signs. Now, one thing you notice about these, chocolate, collectibles, train, restaurant, you know instantly what they sell. You have some shops downtown that have names that I have no clue what it is you sell. And always put on the sign what it is you sell, and then you can put on the front of the store the name of the store. And this is Nantucket, all the best towns. You notice this is Carmel, California. All the best towns all have blade signs. This is Canmore, Alberta. So there's some general rules. No lower than 7 feet, no higher than 9 feet, no wider than 42 inches, because you do need to have them fairly consistent so you don't end up with sign clutter. But look at that. Those are really, really helpful. Because we only knew what was in these shops from across the street. Because when you walk down the sidewalk, you don't know. This one here, we finally found it online because we have no clue what this place is. So we finally found, I think it's a school of like graphic design and industrials. It's some kind of an educational, it's Racine Creative Center. And so I imagine it's educational, right? But we had to dig around on the web to figure out what it was. It's not? I don't know what it is. So, but it's not obvious. There's pole banners there, but it looks like they have brand logos on them, so I don't know what it is. Evelyn's hair looked pretty much downright scary. We didn't know what it was. We went online, and the people that go there absolutely love it. Their Facebook is all full of, we love this place. So, but we had no clue. I mean, not a lot of beautification, no blade sign, nothing that says what it is. You know, my first thing is, brothel? No, I'm kidding. But I had no clue. We didn't know whether it was a bar, whether it was a restaurant, whether it was Evelyn's house. You know? And then, there you go. This is me pitting. I figure if I could have you pit you against Kenosha, maybe people here will say, well, we got to do that. But this is so huge because like right here, first of all, Betty's, hours of operation are Tuesdays, 4:30 a.m. to 4. And close Monday. Well, I don't know about Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. We never saw it open. So I don't know whether it's in business. Somebody said it's new. Somebody said it's good. We could never find it open. And obviously the hours looks like, I don't know. But if it was in business, I mean, there's no beautification there. There's no tables, there's no chairs, there's no umbrellas. And I have a feeling it's because it's a state highway. And that's what I want you to change. Because your Main Street should be like this. That's Covington, Kentucky. This is downtown Salem, Massachusetts. I mean, those are silk flowers. It's pretty inexpensive. But you know what? It brings things to life. This is Nelson, British Columbia, a town of 5,000 in the Rocky Mountains, where they create places like this. And behind it, they put all these little sidewalk cafes. Sidewalk time. They will even take, like cars, they say, you know what, our sidewalks aren't wide enough, so we will let you take a couple parking spaces to do a little deck like this so that people can enjoy sidewalk cafes. Now, I don't really like putting people close to traffic lanes like that. I've got a better idea. But the point is, it's organic, it's fun. I don't know why. I would love to see dog dishes outside your retail shops. I want your downtown to be organic. I want it to be about people, not ordinances. And I mean, granted, we have to have laws. We have to have ordinances. I went to law school. I get it. But sometimes I think we litigate our businesses out of business. And so I think that places, need to be more organic. And so in Nelson, they say, look, I took this in October. They're about ready to take it down for snow removal for the winter months. But in this case, what they do is all during the summer, they say, if that's your restaurant, you're allowed to have that parking space. And they do pay the city $1 a month for it and falls under their insurance. I love, this is the idea I like. This is Wolfville, Nova Scotia. And I'm showing you places that have lots of snow. Because I always hear that excuse, but Roger, we're in Wisconsin. Give me a break. So this here, the restaurant, the people are on the sidewalk and they route the pedestrians around. And I think these are the coolest things to do. Now, most of your sidewalks are plenty wide that you don't have to do this. But if you do this on like Wisconsin Ave where they're narrower, on 6 where you do that, I think you should allow business to do this. And by the way, I'll give you an example, but I think it's cool. It's a non-slip surface. It all fits ADA. But sidewalk cafes like the town of Canmore, Alberta, population 10,000, how cool is that? It brings downtown to life. So when you do these kinds of things, it's amazing. Now, I was working in Barrie, Ontario, about an hour north of Toronto, about the same size as Racine. And I said, you guys need, first of all, they said, our downtown, we're known for the bar scene. I mean, every once in a while there'll be a bar fight, and it's on the news in Toronto, so all they know of Barrie is it's a bar scene and bar fights. So I walked their downtown, which is slightly longer than yours. I counted 6 bars. I went to them, I said, you don't have too many bars, you don't have enough of the other stuff. And I said, you have these restaurants, but none of them have sidewalk cafes. He said, city doesn't allow us to do sidewalk cafes. And at this meeting, a guy, the planning director said, we do allow sidewalk cafes. I said, see, there you go. Well, the guy that owns British Arms came up to me and said, Roger, I would like you to go secret shop the planning department and get a permit to do a sidewalk cafe in front of my business. So I put on a baseball cap and waited a couple of days, went in there, and the person at the permit counter, first of all, was like, well, it'll take you about 14 months to get a permit. We need to have all your architectural drawings. You'll probably be in at about $10,000. I mean, it was just like, don't even bother. So I went to a city council meeting, and in 15 minutes, it was, you bring us a napkin. In 15 minutes, first of all, they give you a sheet. A one sheet says, here's what you have to do. You have to allow for storm drainage. You have to have it ADA compatible. You have to have reflectors on it. It can't stick out. They give you a list of rules, said you could bring us your drawings on a napkin, $250 to get the permit to inspect it and everything, and you'll get the permit within 7 days. We did that in 15 minutes, and within 3 or 4 months, there was 14 restaurants with sidewalk cafes, and they said, Roger, bars, nobody's ever heard about the bar scene after that. And it's been several years now. And so he did it. And by the way, in the winter, all these restaurants, they co-opt a warehouse to store this stuff. So because it doesn't work really well with snow removal, but during the winter months, they put them in a warehouse, and then they bring out they're all made so that you could take them apart. I mean, that's it. I took this early in the morning so you could see they made it easy for ADA access, wheelchairs, strollers, you name it. It has beautification. It has the reflectors on it. How cool is that? We would love to see your Main Street look like this, with bike lanes, with angle-in parking, with sidewalk cafes. There's just no reason it shouldn't, and you will have the coolest downtown in the state of Wisconsin. I'll give you one other one. In Asheville, North Carolina, you might be going, oh my God, that's not ADA. They have all these chairs. They have some general rules that say, you know what, please, restaurants, would you do this? In 14 years, they have never had a complaint. And the city manager and the mayor came up to me and they said, you know, Roger, you know why? Because every time they see a stroller or wheelchair, the people sitting in the chair say, oh, excuse me, let me move in. So sometimes I think and that's my problem with DOTs, really, should it take 4 or 5 months to put a table and a chair out in a sidewalk that's 30 feet away from the traffic lane? And those are the challenges that we just litigate ourselves out of business. You know, and all these restaurants, they should just be, you know, there's one there. Actually, they have 2 there, but it's just, you know, so we go up 6th Street and we're going, that's what all of Main Street should look like. So, same here. I mean, really, we have a couple of chairs there, but it's like, oh, come on, there's no umbrellas, there's no beautification. You know, we did eat there, we had some gelato, but I got to tell you, this is another restaurant, and you know what they will do? It's an ice cream shop, and they will give somebody free ice cream if they will sit out there in the chair and eat it. Because other people see it, and then first thing you know, there's a line coming out the door. I walked into one of these shops once, I said, you know what you should do? There was a couple kids eating ice cream. I said, you know, if I was you, first of all, I took a picture of the shop. Then I left, I came back like 20 minutes later, there was a line coming out the door and down the sidewalk of people trying to get in. And by the way, it was a home accent store. It wasn't even an ice cream shop, the one that I took a picture of. And you know what I did? I got in line. And I got in line, and when I walked in, she sells home accents, but she has one of those like 3-foot ice cream counters in her home accent store. I got up to the thing, and I said, you know, you're not an ice cream business, but you know what I would do? I would give those kids free ice cream and let them sit out there all day. And she goes, that's what I do. But she goes, you know what I do? I give kids free ice cream cone 1 a day, and they do need to eat it in those chairs. And their moms love me. And I said, but here's the other problem. You're serving ice cream in a home accent store when most businesses put no food or drink inside. She goes, every once in a while I have an accident, but 70% of my non-ice cream sales come because of the ice cream. It's worth the occasional accident. And so in this case, a couple tables and chairs. I mean, like that. I love spaces like this. I wish it was a little more active. I never really saw much going on in there. And that leads me to the next thing, is beautification. This was the biggest shock of all. We go on TripAdvisor, like #1 place to eat breakfast, and everything. We drive around the corner. I went, what the hell? There's absolutely no way we go in there. But you know what? There was 14 people waiting to get inside. I walked inside and I thought to myself, how do these people get a health permit? So remember I said about your best of and it needs to have good curb appeal? Well, this is one of the places that's pretty much an institution. And so we couldn't eat there. I didn't put on best of because we didn't eat there. But from all the people online, they're saying it's fantastic. Don't judge the book by its cover. But generally speaking, that's what we do. Because when I had to go double check TripAdvisor, that can't be right. So there you go. Sometimes the coolest things can be in the most unlikely places. But you know what? Some of your merchants, and by the way, all merchants, and I don't know what the rules are, all merchants should have 30 inches along their facade for benches, planters, and extending window displays to exterior spaces. This is about active, and by the way, we love all the police dogs, all the decks. I think that's really cool. But anyway, everyone should have that. And by the way, so I think these are great, but like Sheepish, I have no clue what they sell. And it's the same with, what's the East Indian shop? Dimples. Have no idea what they sell. So one thing on blade signs, I always put what it is, your main thing you sell, and then put Sheepish, Dimples, those kinds of things there. But once again, they do a fabulous job. These are great shops. You know what? That block and those little row of shops is the very best of Racine. Those are great little shops. One thing that's important about downtowns is, first of all, the days of the suburban mall are over. I think the Fox River Mall in Appleton will do well because they're more upscale. They get upstate Michigan coming down. I mean, they're Wisconsin's shopping place. That's their brand. And but the days of the church, 1/3 of the malls in the country will close this year. We're moving from Macy's to Etsy. That's what those 4 shops are. Those 4 or 5, that little block of Dimples and Sheepish and the Gallery and those things. Those are things we can't find on Amazon. And those will thrive in downtowns. The days of going downtown to buy socks, jeans, hosiery, underwear are pretty much over. We go downtown for specialty shops. This is why the Sears, the Pennies, the Macy's, the department stores are really suffering. We want specialty shops. Now, Walmart will do fine because it serves rural America. But generally speaking, that's where downtowns are back. But here's an important statistic. 70% of first-time sales come from curb appeal. It's just like when we saw Cliffs. If we had not seen the high rating on TripAdvisor, we would have driven by that and went, not on your life. But that's it. You know what? I'll bet everybody in your travels, have you ever said these words, that looks like a good place to eat? We do. That is the power of curb appeal. So extending window displays to exterior spaces every morning is great. I don't know why none of your restaurants will even do that. I mean, that is just not that expensive or hard to do. And if you do have a couple that have done it, fantastic, we missed you. But you know what? Doing this, this is what you should do. Every morning this lady does that. It makes it obvious you're open. We counted 21 vacancies on Main Street. This tells us you're in business. Look at even the bike shop, how they have hanging up. They stayed within their 30 inches. How cool is that? But simple things. I took these in Laverne, Minnesota. That's great. And some of your merchants get it, but most of your merchants don't. And so these are the ingredients. Extension of window displays, blade signs, benches, beautification, facade appeal, window displays. There's your ingredients. You know, this is Neenah, Wisconsin. We believe cities should be in charge of curbside beautification, but merchants, downtown associations should do facade side. Before, after. Retail sales went up almost 30%, just going from that to that. You know what you could do? I love this. This is Fredericksburg, Texas. They did a buying co-op. And by the way, you need to have pots every 3 feet, not just one on each side of the door. You want people to drive down Main Street and go, oh my gosh. It'll slow them down. They will stop. They will get out of their cars because it's so beautiful. And in Fredericksburg, they didn't have a lot of money to work with, so they decided they were going to do a cool thing. What they did is they went downtown and said, we want to add pots every 3 feet all the way down. So they said, would you help pay for it? And they said, donate whatever could. A couple merchants gave them like $20. One merchant gave them like $200. I think the average was like $40. And then they took the money, they went to a wholesale nursery, and they said, at the end of the season, like in October, it said, we'll take all the pots you got, 21 inches or bigger opening. So we didn't want little ones. And if they have chips, we'll take them. If they have a little hairline crack, we'll take them. If you have one that doesn't match, we'll still take it. We'll take whatever you got. And then, so they did that. They got a flatbed truck. They brought them down, brought them back. They put them on the side street and said, merchants, help yourselves. They didn't say, you paid $20, you only get one. They just said, help yourselves. So obviously, you know, this merchant right over here grabbed these that kind of look similar. They grabbed these. Then this merchant, you see these kind of white ones right there. They grabbed those. And they started putting them up and down. This lady grabbed 2. Now it's October. They're in the hill country of Texas. So then what they did is they put 15 yards of topsoil in the side street and some gravel and some landscape fabric. They went to their youth organizations, like Boy Scouts, Girls, I guess it's all just Scouts now. They went to Scouts, they went to cheerleaders, football, you know, any youth organization that was trying to raise money. They said, what we want you to do is put gravel in the pots, put a layer of landscape fabric, and then fill them full of topsoil. And then what they did, because it was wintertime, they filled them full of pinwheels, and it made the national news, because all the pinwheels were going off. And people were just like, wow. And they put, you know, winter flowers in them and everything. And by the way, they never had one case of vandalism because kids protect things they take ownership of. Bingo. And so, there was even some pots left over. Doesn't it make you want to walk in that store? Blade sign, beautification, fantastic. That's what you need to do. But there's another thing I want to show you. What do you see in this photo? Go ahead, blurt it out. It's the men sitting in the benches. Where are the wives? Shopping. That was not posed. I see that everywhere. And so I have 2 words for you. Think benches. I mean, you know what? There's Jane being my model. Every shop should have a bench. And by the way, all benches should be at the facade facing out. It's your front porch. Why do you think we put front porch swings out there? We may never sit in them. It makes our home feel welcoming. It works with retail. Think benches. And by the way, I don't want to hear the Wisconsin winter excuse. Because we've worked all over this state. We've worked in Minnesota. We've worked in Indiana, Illinois, Michigan. I could keep going on and on. This is in Port Elgin, Ontario in January. It just switches. Yeah, you can see the snow shovel out there. You know what? This is in Erin, Ontario, mid-December. You know, I mean, look at this. This is the middle of the winter. Yeah, there's not a lot of snow because they had awnings here. But look at these. These are great displays. There's just no excuse for making downtown beautiful 12 months of the year. I mean, this is women's fashion. I think that is the coolest ever. Isn't that awesome? There's just no excuse. Matter of fact, I came from the ski industry. When we helped develop Whistler Resort, you know what we found with all the sidewalk cafes? People in the middle of the winter in the snow want to sit, they're wearing their ski gear out in an outdoor cafe with an umbrella, and then they have a propane heater. Now, I'm not saying that'll always work for you, but the thing is, you need to make downtown beautiful 12 months of the year. And so there you go. There's what I always think is, but look at most of your storefronts. I mean, why would I go in any of those shops? There's no blade signs and there's no beautification. I don't even know if there's businesses in there. And so like right here, I'd have a bench, and I'd have pots. You know, maybe, I don't know, that might be too narrow. Maybe you have to put a couple of pots there. But any kind of beautification would be fantastic. Here, love this place. By the way, this is, Seabex is one of our favorite. As a matter of fact, I didn't bring it with me. I actually bought a Damn It doll. Have you guys seen those? It's this little stuffed doll that every time you have a bad moment, you just hit yourself in the head and go, damn it, damn it, damn it. And they sell them in Seabex. You got to get one. I mean, the first day we were trying to find things, I wish I would have had that. I've been driving around and going, damn it, damn it, damn it. Pretty cool, cute little thing, but great shop. But once again, I'd love to see a bench. I'd love to see, maybe they put a nice pot there, another pot there, maybe two pots right there, another pot there, since they don't really have a place for a bench that really works. But those are the kinds of things you can do to really pull people in your doors. And it's a great shop. This is in that little row. And of course, we put them up there too. And so, I mean, you know what? I don't know who owns this building. This is called biting the hand that feeds you. But you know what? Until yesterday morning, I had no clue there was a restaurant in this building. There's absolutely zero curb appeal. I mean, I know it's offices, but even put tables, chairs, and umbrellas down there, or pot, bench, pot. You put a pot, a bench, a pot in every one of those openings. I mean, it's a nice building, and by the way, we are thrilled that they are downtown and not out of the campus. But even S.C. Johnson needs to understand the power of curb appeal. And so, I took this picture. I still can't see that there's a restaurant in there. Had no clue until yesterday morning that there was a restaurant in there. And I feel really bad for the restaurant. There's no tables and chairs outside. There's no blade signs. There's nothing. It's on the side. But you know what? We're on Main Street. There should be one on Main Street and one on the side. That just says Red Onion. But the thing is, there was even that without, and by the way, if you just put Red Onion out there, I don't know what it is. Is it a retail store or is it a restaurant? And so I just think, that you should do that. But even office buildings like Design Partners should still have beautification. Now, these are gone now, but my first thing was, what? Really? You surround your public art with, is that supposed to be really artistic? Can't you put them in a row somewhere else? You got like vacant buildings on this square. Why don't you put them over there? But really, you wrap your public art with I just went, you got to be kidding. They're gone. I know it was for the run. I get why they were there and everything, and they are gone now. But I just went, I thought it's somebody's idea of artistic. And then, once again, benches. I'd move every bench against the facade facing out. Nobody wants to have cars right at their back or be facing cars. Always to the facade facing out. So now, here's the next big one. Is business mix. We actually went down and tried to inventory the business mixes between Jimmy John's and Dewey's. 11th and 6th, is that about right? Whatever. So, and this is pretty much what you had. But some things were, you had a lot of vacant. And by the way, some of them we had to guess what they were. But we came away going, we surveyed these 400 towns, and your business mix was really odd compared to all the other 400 great downtowns. Like you have no men's fashions, you have no casual clothing, you have, I think there was 2 women's fashion stores. It was just kind of there was a lot of missing components. And so we've taken the liberty to tell you what should be in these 21 shops. By the way, when we first saw this, we're just going, it's weird. You can't, there's some missing, there's no shoe stores, there's no, and if there were, we missed them. Uh-oh, did I just lose something? I don't know what happened here. I think our projector back there shut off. So here comes Mike. He's going to go back there and fix our projector. And you think that's what happened, Mike? We're going to find out. So Mike's been really great. This is a fantastic place, by the way. So what happened is we pulled some demographics because people don't care about city limits. As a matter of fact, like Mount Pleasant, you know what? Mount Pleasant's going to be probably where a lot of people live. This will probably still be the downtown for Mount Pleasant. And by the way, people, I could care less about city lines. Have you ever gone anywhere and say, whoa, that's Sturtevant, turn around, click? Or Mount Pleasant or North Bay? We don't. We just see, you know what? I tell people we live in Phoenix. We really don't live in Phoenix. We live in Peoria. But that's what you say. So I hope that when I talk about Racine, this applies to all these communities. I really think your main street is the downtown for Mount Pleasant. I think Mount Pleasant, when you get Foxconn, is going to have a lot of residential communities. It'll probably have some neighborhood retail. I don't know how it's going to develop. But I do believe that this is their downtown. And so I hope that people don't get into this. We're Mount Pleasant, you're not serving us. We're Racine, you're not. You know what I mean? It doesn't make any difference. We see you as one area. I mean, you know what? I showed you a lot of things in Wind Point, Caledonia, other places. Who cares? It's to your benefit. It makes a great place to live. And so, Mike, how you doing back there? It's coming up, okay. And so we pulled up some Esri, which does demographic reports. And one thing we found is we did a 5-mile circle from State and Maine, which means half the circle's in the water. 120,000 people. You're the downtown for 120,000 people. And so you have some holes to fill, and I'm going to show you how to fill them. One thing that we did notice is, oh, there we go. Thank you, sir. Is we actually pulled up demographics for 5 miles, 10 miles, and 15 miles. Now, I know 15 miles start getting us in South Milwaukee, and probably we're treading in Kenosha territory. But I just wanted to see the numbers. And what I saw is those numbers. If you do this with Main Street, you could be serving a couple 100,000 people. And if you can make Main Street work, I guarantee you these districts like Uptown, up on Spring and State, they will be next to come in line. And I thought, man, we actually even pulled up your leakage, retail leakage. You have a lot of leakage. Things on the right are leakage, which means they're buying it somewhere else. And so and I'm not going to get into all these numbers, but I want you to start working with your property owners and start orchestrating your business mix. Recruit these missing elements and include in their lease agreements operating hours and days. You know what? If you lease a space in a mall, guess what? It will say you will open at 10 o'clock. If you're not open by 10:05, it's $1,000 for every 5 minutes you open late. You need to have some consistency. Uncork staying open by himself in that stretch, probably not a whole lot of customers. If they were all open in that stretch, they would all do better. If some stores open in a mall at 9, some open at 10, some open at 11, when we go to the mall, you'd wait till after 11. If they close 5, 6, and 7, you know what you do? You say, well, I guess I have to go on weekends because I'm at work the rest of the time. And I think there's a great opportunity you have a lot of vacancies. You got great opportunity for people living downtown. You know what we noticed, and I don't know if this is true, but this was our perception, that the higher income residents here shop in Milwaukee and Chicago, and the lower end residents, because they can't afford to make those trips, shop here. And that's because we saw a proliferation of very low end retailers. And no offense, I think Dollar General stores are fine, but you had an awful lot of lower end retail that doesn't really match your demographic of who's living here. I mean, we actually ran into people up north of town that actually we never go downtown. And that's really sad. So we're going to show you how to fix it. Here is what you need. Now, whoa, I was going to do those one at a time. But I'm not a huge fan of chains, but I think doing a Starbucks downtown would do well. You should have like 3 or 4 coffee shops downtown. So I think adding another one there would be great. I think you need to have a bike shop right downtown. It's on 6th, missed it. And do they rent bikes? And do they put bikes out during the day? Never saw them. See what I mean? These are things, if you're missing blade signs and everything. Okay, an outfitter. The one in the Johnson Building is not really an outfitter. They sell kayaks and scuba. I use Scuba Pro gear. I guess they own those brands. But it does. You can't go in there and buy hiking shoes. You can't buy outfitter stuff. I would love to see an REI in your downtown. They'd be I think they'd come here in a heartbeat. You know what? Casual clothing, you need more. I didn't see any real casual clothing, maybe one women's fashion store. I was just shocked. Men's fashions, I think you could do one of those. You know what? Somebody's going to say there is a bakery. I never thought that bakery was in business. First of all, when you put film in the windows where you cannot see anything inside, it looks like you're empty. And in one window, there's like 3 cakes. I have no idea whether that bakery is in business, whether they sell breakfast sandwiches, I don't know what they sell. There's nothing that gives me anything. So see, sometimes businesses are their own worst enemies that you could fix for a couple $100. I think when you do reflective film on windows, it should always be one way so you can at least see in. I live in Arizona. They don't block them out like that. You can still see in, but it does have the reflective film. I think, doing that, a bookstore, you know what? Shoe stores are big in downtowns. There's a company called Brown's Shoes. They have these in rural cities everywhere, and they do great business. Home accents, interior design, there should be 3 of those. I'd love to see a fitness center right in the downtown. You need to have, I know somebody said you used to have a West Marine here. Well, you know what? You might have been ahead of your time. And maybe it's not West Marine. You need to have a Marine store here, but what it needs to do, it needs to switch gears during the winter months. And so it could be that type. Nautical, I'd love to see an Orvis store here, fishing and gear. Nautical, you need to have some kind of people want to live in downtowns, but we need to buy groceries without having to drive 6 miles. It's true. This is about people. And so a juice bar, 3 downtown hotels, resort conference hotels. I'd love to see you have more ethnic restaurants. You know what? If you had 40 restaurants in downtown, you'd have people coming here from Chicago for your dining. So people say if you bring more restaurants, you're competing with me. No, you're not. The more you have, the further we'll come. And so all of these things. And by the way, this comes from research. We've been doing this for 35 years. We've been in zillions of downtowns. These work today. These work. And so the first thing, I think top of the list is you need a fantastic hotel right there. That's up on the bluff. It doesn't block anybody. It's right next to a park. It would overlook, it would bookend your downtown. I just went, that's a parking lot next to the college. And now I don't know who owns these or what the logistics are or anything. I just thought, highest and best use? I just went, look, it's right up there. I'm just going, really? It's a great view if you want to park there at night with your girlfriend or boyfriend. Train for a career in hospitality management. So, I thought that was pretty cool. But, I just go, wouldn't it be cool to have a hotel next to the college? This one here, this is the Copperleaf in downtown Appleton. Anybody stay there? Hey, that used to be an office building. Remember what I said? Downtown hotels outperform highway hotels 4-1. They run it in the 90% occupancy, and their average daily rate, I think they're in the $400 to $600 a night. So, I mean, this is the Copperleaf. I mean, it's fantastic. I mean, look what they do. This was an office building. So that was one side. Then I thought, okay, down here, why couldn't we put one, where is it? Where'd it go? I thought I had it here somewhere. Would you guys like a 5-minute break? Would that be good? I only have about 15 minutes more or so, but I don't mind giving you a little break, and then we'll just start in about 5 minutes. So as soon as you see this, come back and sit down. Sound good? All right, get you stand up for a few minutes. And okay, everyone. I'm drawing near the end. So, in that last slide, while you're all taking a seat, okay, I gotta wait for this. I suggested maybe one could go there, or was that the previous one? Okay, let me go back. Oh yeah, this was the Copperleaf. So I thought, man, if you did that one hotel site, what about right there? I just saw several places. I thought you could have hotels in a couple of places. I even thought right there, you could have like 3 or 4 places for really nice hotels that would have easy access to Main Street, would all have easy access along your waterfront, and none of them are down on the waterfront, so you're not losing any of that parkland or anything. And then, even so it would be kind of there was this area, you know what I'm talking about? That's where this is, where I put that right there. And I just thought, I don't even know what this is. It looks like some kind of bunker or something. I mean, I think it's a drive-through for a bank. I don't know where the rest of the bank is. Oh, it's across the street. So because you have some fantastic things. You've got like the art museum, which is just incredible and just amazing. As a matter of fact, we included that on the best of list. And then even down, towards this area, I mean, this is right near the DoubleTree. There's a huge lot there. And I went, that's ridiculous. There's no hotel there. It got voted down by who? Well, you know what? You have a new mayor. There's a new sheriff in town. What's that? Oh, he's the one that voted down? Well, I'll give him a bad time. Because that's a crying shame. I just thought that, I saw this online. Why aren't you building that somewhere? You have to understand that even places like Foxconn, they would probably use that 100 times a year. I mean, you've got all these big companies here, and you don't have. This to me I just saw that online. I don't even know it was an artist render or something. I just went, what the heck? Why would you turn that down? I guess I have zero idea why you would do that. So no offense to the mayor, but I don't get. And by the way, are you a manager council form of government, or are you a mayoral form of government? Okay, the old-fashioned way. Okay, well, that's why. Because I always say council members are meant to set policy, not run the day-to-day operations. I'm getting in a whole nother area that maybe I should have just quit when the power went down. So, we'd love to see more of these. More little. And by the way, you're never going to outcompete Milwaukee as the beer capital of the world. But I just think these cool little brewing companies and things like that are just really great for downtown. This is John's Outfitter. I think it's a stunningly beautiful store, but it's not really a full range outfitter. Like an REI would be. That might have a climbing wall and stuff in it. And I did think it was really a beautiful place. But I do think that if you contacted REI, I think they'd be in here in a heartbeat. I do think you need more kids, family-oriented stuff. I think a couple people have said that you're really good on bars and nightlife, but you're a little lack on kids stores. I'd love to see some things that are more about families. Just in your downtown even. And so one of the last things I want to talk about is activating downtown. Now, even out in front of Dimples, I love the fact that she's out there doing chalk painting, and she's out there they're doing anything they can to activate their storefront. And I think that's great. Hats off to them. It's hard to do constantly all year round. And so I think you need to do it as a downtown association. And by the way, I added some of these other ones like Dimples and Sheepish and Dover Flag. That's fantastic. Lighthouse Gallery, Northern Lights. I mean, you got some really cool shops downtown. And so spaces like this, they're pretty spaces, but they're not activity spaces. I would rather see you take out the lawn and put in paver stones and then put activities in there. And I'm going to show you some ideas of how you could activate these spaces. But once again, I would say rather than just have a pretty space that nobody ever spends time in because there's not a single bench in it, you know, that you could turn into activity spaces. Even like this, now this might be private, but I just see all these little places that could be places for people to hang out. And I mean hang out in a good way. But this one here, I thought was the biggest travesty in all of Racine. And so the first thing I want you to do is move that monument down to the water. I'm kidding, just kidding. I've been at this rodeo long enough to never even touch something like that. But I think you can work around it. So, I think this is a great opportunity that's just been blown. So let me show you how to fix it. The very first thing I would do is get the cars off the plaza. It just doesn't make any sense. Then get rid of those bollards down there and make it a people place. Now, once they're gone, get rid of the bollards. There you go. So you got that. Then I would reorganize the business mix. There's no business. The only thing on that square that has anything to do with being on a square is Sugar Shack. You have empty buildings. You have like, I don't know, fitness, clothing. I mean, you got a pharmacy on a plaza? It just doesn't make any sense. Now, by the way, we don't want to kick these businesses out. We want to relocate, we want to move the furniture around. If this is a plaza, that should be full of restaurants. It should be full of places to eat, maybe a couple little cool shops. But it just doesn't make any sense why you have cars there. Now I know what's going to happen is you're going to have people say, well, Roger Brooks came in and said they should take away the cars. If you take away the cars in front of my store, you're going to kill my business. Here's your response. Are you telling me your business isn't worth walking a block for? Shuts them up just like that. Let me give you another statistic. The average shopper at Walmart parks 140 to 160 feet away from the front door. That's average. That means half of them are parking further than that. Yet they have no problem walking that 160 feet to the front door and then walking all the way back to Walmart, which is about where the entry to this is, to buy a DVD or a Blu-ray. They just walk 2 blocks. It just has to be worth it. Now, I think you could absolutely have delivery vehicles go in here until like 10:30 in the morning so that, or, you know, and you'd have little bollards. Maybe you'd have little bollards. Let me just go right over here that pop up here so they have emergency access in here. But this should be a plaza. It should be programmed. It should be about people. Think Europe. Almost every town built around a piazza, and it's all monetized. There's restaurants and commerce on the plaza. You have that opportunity here and you don't do it. I mean, there's your business. These could be switched around. You have a blank space that could be developed. But you'd have 1, 2, 3 restaurants. Maybe you put an outfitter there, a microbrew there. Maybe you have a little coffee shop. You already got the Sugar Shack. I mean, you need to rearrange that business mix. Then I thought, okay, now you got this plaza. We got cars off of it. Now, the next thing I would do is I'd put street trees every 30 feet. All along the row of buildings there, like you saw in Greenville, and I would also do that along Main. So now you've got a people place. It feels good, because trees create a sense of intimacy. Then in here, all those little yellow things are like 10-foot Catalina umbrellas. So those would all be tables and dining places. So can you imagine that whole front all be full of tables and chairs and Catalina umbrellas where people are sitting there having coffee. They can watch things going on the square. And then in this case, I even put in, there's the monument. Notice the red, that means it stays. Okay, that doesn't mean I'm taking it away. So it's right there, but then you say, you know what? You can even put dining tables around that. You know, and then what you do is you can do things like that purple square up at the top there, that's a stage. Put a stage there. You can even make it permanent. By the way, stages always have to face south so that the sun shines into the performers, not in the audience eyes. Okay? And then what you could do, in this case, those little white squares you see are vendor booths. So in this case, let's put it as a programmed, you know, you can walk all around all 4 vendors. So it could be a public market, a farmer's market, an art market, something. And you might have 4, 8, you might have 12, you might have 16, you might have 20 vendors in there for this. And every 2 weeks it would change. Wouldn't that be cool? You know, and so if you did a stage like this is in Richland, Washington, a stage like this that's more permanent, but then you'd have all pavers, would be just really cool. A stage should usually be 20 feet deep by 50 feet, and maybe you have a 40-foot screen so you drop down and do movies on the square on Monday nights. See what I mean? We're talking about activity now. And you know, your street trees, you see all of these street trees here? They're all seating surfaces. This is about people, not landscape architecture or architecture. It's about human beings and people. Between the trees, I would put these kinds of planters. That way you keep cars, you know, these days terrorists and stuff have a thing about driving into crowds. So what you do is between those trees, you might put some of these just to give you a nice, safe boundary around it. I mean, it's just not that expensive to do. In Disney, notice the raised planters, but you notice something about those raised planters? Notice how the surface is? Those are designed because Disney is all about people, and that's why. When you do your plaza, it has to be about people. Can you imagine those sidewalk cafes out in front of there looking like this or like this? That's how spectacular this could be. You know, even can you imagine that whole plaza? You might do the Taste of Racine County or the Taste of Racine. You know, and then you just fill that whole plaza full of tables and chairs and umbrellas. You could do tailgate parties. You could show Packers games. You could do, I mean, it would always change. It's an activity space. Can you imagine? You could go buy those. So you might say, you know what, and I think you should do your plaza, it should change every 2 weeks. So for 2 weeks, you might have these big chess sets there. You know, you can buy these on Amazon. They're like, it's $199 for that and so it's like $600. You could get this whole, and you get a bank or somebody to sponsor 6 of those. And you put them in the square. You might have checkers. I mean, you might even do Jenga blocks. These are Jenga blocks. You know what I mean? You pull out the wood blocks until they fall and they're like 4 feet tall. You know what? They're $80 a piece. So you put 20 of them out there.
I can't stand this anymore.
Okay.
We are. Life on the square.
Good.
Jenga, ping pong.
Really? When? I haven't seen it all week. Awesome. Good. Still need to get those cars out of there. So, but even doing things like that's great. That's awesome. But we've been here for 8 days and I haven't seen anything happen on the square.
This Saturday, first.
Okay, you need to do it 250 days a year minimum. I'm getting to that. And you're going to go, oh my crap, now what did I do, you know. But I'm going to tell you about that, okay? So great, I'm glad you're doing this. I mean, doing all of these things. And that's awesome that you're doing those. This is in downtown New York City. They even have ping pong tables in the Indianapolis airport. And so just want you to do this. You can even put out bocce ball. And they're out there for a couple of weeks. And then I think you're already doing this too. I think doing yoga and Zumba is big now, and then do Tai Chi, and I would do these like on weekday mornings. I would do these, I mean, I'm gonna look at this some more. So, and this is what I mean, but every once in a while you might just say, we're just gonna put something like this on each end. But the thing is, with this, is it needs to be a minimum of 250 days a year. Here's what comes first in revitalizing downtown. People there on a consistent basis. The minimum consistent basis to fill your vacant retail is 250 days. It still leaves them another 115 days they have to fend for themselves. But if you can bring people downtown 250 days a year, the merchants will come back because the customers are already there. So that is the trick. It can't just be on Fridays and Saturdays during the summer. It needs to be 250 days a year. So I'm going to talk about weather in a minute because weather can't be an impediment. But you can even bring in other vendors that do like rock. This is a portable rock climbing wall. And they charge kids a couple bucks, and they just have fun with it. This is a portable zip line that you put in. You can see them putting it up there. I mean, just activating it like every 2 weeks. This is in Indianapolis, and they can move that around. It's a little seating area. So the square is always changing. You could do Imagination Playground. These are like Lincoln Logs, but they're foam. And can you imagine you do these out there would just be fun. And you could do those 2 weeks, and then maybe another 2 weeks later on. And then, wouldn't that be awesome for your kids? Because you want to get your families back downtown. And by the way, you can see kind of these bins at the end of the day. They put them in these bins, and then they just roll them into, you do have to have a storage place for all this stuff. These actually close up at night. And so, so you could do stuff like a lot of sponsors do this. And then you know what I would do? I would get portable information. So when you have events like the Lighthouse Run and other runs and events, that you actually have portable visitor information. I always say the best way to do visitor information is bring it to your customers rather than try to find you. This is like $2,500. And it's made out of PVC pipes, and this is in Banff, Alberta. It's pretty cool. But that's another thing you could do, that when people come up and they say, where's a good place to eat? What else should I see? You could tell them about Wind Point or North Beach or the S.C. Johnson Wright Tours. I saw this in Sault Ste. Marie. We just assessed it a couple weeks ago. And I thought, man, you could even for a couple weeks put a fitness park in. And by the way, this is in Canmore, Alberta, and people are using this stuff in the winter. They're out there with their ski gear on doing all of this stuff. And it's pretty cool. Centennial Park Outdoor Fitness Circuit, keeping our community healthy. These are all kinds of things that you could do. And by the way, I want you to look at this for a second. It's a square that's just a square. You notice what they did? Notice the tables, they're wire reels. Even those, there's pallets back there. Look they're sitting on little wire reels. This is totally done on a shoestring budget. And then you can see, in this case, they have 1, 2, 3, 4 food trucks there. And so I think it is absolutely awesome that you're doing this. You just need to be given the power to do it more. And I'm going to talk about the weather in a second. In Long Beach, California, they took 6 parking spaces. They just painted it yellow and brown. Then they added a bunch of yellow tables and chairs. And then they put like food trucks, and they would bring somebody in during the lunch hour for comedy or to talk about things. And you know what? They did it temporarily. It never reopened back up for parking. People loved it. And so doing these kinds of things, even this works. Wouldn't that be awesome? So, music, I could just see music. And by the way, this needs to extend beyond the square. It needs to go all the way up and down Main. Like every block, there should be a place for street performers. And that's where you go, street corners, empty spaces, the rest of downtown. Bring downtown to life. You might have to fund these entertainers at first just to get people there, and then they make their money on tips. That's what they did in Asheville, North Carolina. Now they don't have to pay them anything because downtown is where everybody goes. And so doing artisans out there, doing even stuff like this is cool. It's bringing downtown back to life. And you should encourage it as much as you possibly can. Whether it's food vendors, ice cream trucks, you name it. This is Santa Monica's 3rd Street Promenade. You can see there's performers like every half a block. Bring downtown to life. And you know what? This is Denver, 16th Street. They have 16 pianos out there. Yeah, they cover them when it rains or snows. And they have piano tuners out there. Those are the kinds of things you ought to do once you get it back from the Department of Transportation. Even can you see doing chainsaw carver events? Pottery. I can imagine just out there on the square for 2 weeks having kilns and ovens and stuff where people are doing pottery. And they're teaching people how to do pottery, but they're also selling it. And so it's great for commerce, ice festivals. There's so many things you could do. it should change by the season. In this case, Christmas tree auctions, New Year's festival, ice carvers. You could do all of these things. And so it's just about taking that space and really bringing it to life. And I'm telling you, it will do all of downtown. That was a quilt show. You can even do little vendor booths like this and rent them out to locals. Some of those might be out there most of the year. This is Bryant Park in New York City. Those things operate 12 months of the year. And they have some pretty heavy winters and a lot more rain than you get. And those, by the way, they can move those around. They're all on pallets. But wouldn't it be cool if you had 6 or 7 of those wrapped around the square? These are all things you could do to bring downtown to life. Street markets, art fairs, all of these things. And it all takes place down there. This is in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. They actually have, these are in a warehouse. They assemble them all. And between Thanksgiving and Christmas, they have Santa House, and they've got all these cool little places. I just think if you do this, you're not going to have any problem bringing people downtown, and you'll have 0 vacancies. And when you get to 0 vacancies on Main, I guarantee you, then 6th Street is going to come to life. It already is. But even further up, State Street, Uptown, all these other districts will start to come to life. And by the way, the primary hours for activity on Monument Square are 4 o'clock to 10 o'clock at night. 4 to 10, it should be your primary hours. People want things to do after work and on weekends. The future of downtowns is where we go after work and on weekends. We're at school, we're at work, we're doing other things. And now that's your primary hours for all these activities, after work and on weekends. And that will change everything for you. If you had I even thought, man, I'd love to see you move that splash pad up there. Really? Because this is the perfect plaza right here. The splash pad is there. It's all flush mounted like the one you have down by the water. But you put it up here where you might have ice cream shops. You got the Sugar Shack. You have restaurants. And you know what? You can shut them off, and you can put all kinds of vendors over them. And then during the winter, that might be ice. This is Caldwell, Idaho. This is under construction. This is going to open in the next 30 days. Cities everywhere are doing this. They're creating programmed plazas. This is Valparaiso, Indiana. It totally revitalized their downtown. It changed everything. This is Rapid City, South Dakota. I told them take that 65-space parking lot and turn it into a plaza. That's before, that's after. Changed everything. They had 0 vacancies afterwards. They had about 20% before. You see they fenced off part of it. They had a beer garden for this. And by the way, this is active 300 days a year. But here's the deal. If you had a splash pad in Monument Square that operated 120 days a year, and then you switch that to an ice rink in the winter, there's 240 of 250 days. It's activity, not events. And so that is what you need to do, and that's Main Street Square in Rapid City. By the way, that's 8,000 square feet, which is bigger than Rockefeller Center. And by the way, it does have a chiller on it. When you have ice, you have to have a chiller. You never know what the weather's going to be. This is Wisconsin. We've even seen Walnut Creek, California did one of these in synthetic ice. It's fantastic. But and by the way, they make $130,000 a year just renting ice skates, and they have to dole them out because it gets too crowded. And their population is about half of yours. And so it's about bringing downtown to life. They do movies on the square every Monday night. Average attendance, 3,500. And it's all about families. It's all that stuff they do. Look at this. This is Monday Night Movies on the Square, and somebody posted this on social media. It says, I grew up in Rapid City. It was never as cool as it is now. Within 24 months of Rapid City doing Main Street Square, the average age of a person buying a home dropped 12 years. Young families were coming back. And it totally revitalized their downtown. This is a Shoppers Drug Mart, kind of a mall. This is in Waterloo, Ontario. Now, if you were to say, I want you to take away all that parking in front of these stores, what do you think they would say? They'd scream bloody murder, right? Well, you know what? They did it, and during the winter, that's an ice rink, and their sales doubled. It was worth the walk. You need to take Monument Square and put it on steroids. I think what you're doing is fantastic. I love this. It says, so we're doing July 28th, Cultural Kids, activities sponsored by ping pong, Jenga bags. I'd love to see you do that even more.
We are, Saturday.
I know, but we need you. You need Saturdays is great. That's 52 days a year. You need another 200. Okay, so now that brings me to a problem. Is how do you make it work during the winter? This is in Missoula, Montana. So this isn't so cheap to do, but they actually covered their plaza with this tensile covering. They actually can put radiant heaters. There it is underneath. If you have to do that, then do it. 250 days a year, and you can't let weather get in the way. Your businesses, if you do this, your downtown will be incredible. You'll have people come from Kenosha here. Wouldn't it be good if it went that way rather than you going there or to Milwaukee? I just think doing this would be fantastic. And this way you could do it. You could do the ping pong and those things. You could do them for 2 weeks straight. So they're coming down after school or during the summer. And then the next 2 weeks is something different. And you always change it. So you have 26 changes a year. And then every one of them is 7 days a week for 2 weeks. And they don't have to be events where they're sitting there managed. You know what? Detroit created Campus Martius Park. Detroit. They put out 1,400 chairs and like 400 tables. You know what they told me about 6 months ago? I said, so how you doing? How's Campus Martius Park? They said, out of those 1,400 chairs, in the 4, 5, 6 years we've been doing it, we've never had one single chair stolen. Because the people owned it. They loved it. And by the way, all events on the square are free. You can never book the square for a wedding or a private event. It's the public's gathering space. Now, you might charge for people buy pottery or they want to go to the climbing wall because that's a private business doing that. But it's a great way to gravitate people together in one place. And I guarantee you they're going to spread up and down Main Street. I wish Monument Square was more centrally down a couple blocks, but I think you've got it. It's there. It's beautiful. It just needs to be put on steroids. And so once you do this, then you start inviting clubs and organizations. This is in Solvang, California. We were there working, and there was a car show going on. And in this car show, there was this little sign in front of it that said, First Annual Wheels and Windmills Car Show. Well, it turns out that their Chamber of Commerce, in their case, sent an invite to all these car shows, quilt guilds, pottery guilds, and just said, if you ever host an event, we hope you'll pick us. I said, but did they pay you money to come here? They said, no, all they did was invite us. I said, what did they say they'd do for you? Well, they'd close off 2 blocks of Main Street, and they'd put up welcome signs. I said, well, who did all the marketing? I said, we did. And I said, and how many people do you have here? 10,000. And I said, what about all the vendors and everything? He says, oh, we did all of that. All the marketing, everything. I said, when did it start? He says, well, it started on Friday, ran all day Saturday, ran all day, most of Sunday. So we were for 3 days. We filled up all the hotel rooms. And I said, and you did this all because they invited you? I said, yeah. I said, are you going to do it again? It says, oh, yeah, we've already booked the next 10 years. So sometimes you don't have to produce all the stuff. You bring in outsiders, colleges, schools, businesses. It has to be free to the public for the most part. But then all of a sudden you're a place to do that. This is the plaza we're designing in Michigan City, Indiana right now. And you can see it's splash pad. In the winter, that's an ice rink. It's got all kinds of vendor booths. It's monetized. I mean, these are those like vendor booths you saw that I showed you in Bryant Park. All you need is this space that you already have, and you just need to program it. And you're doing some great things on it. You just need to do more often. Here's the thing. If you bring 50 days worth of activity to Main Street, that's still not enough to incentivize somebody to open a business. That's why you have 21 vacancies. When you do this, and you have people there consistently, you're bringing customers front door, you will have 0 vacancies. And we've seen it. So it works. They want downtowns more than ever before. But because a lot of times we have all these different property owners, so for instance, on Monument Square, if all those property owners don't want to change and say, you're never going to, we're the pharmacy, we own this, we're never going to move out of here, then what happens is, I know it's going to, you know what could happen is, I think Mount Pleasant is going to boom. I think developers are going to say, you know what, well, let's build a lifestyle retail center. Because I think they don't really, I couldn't see a real downtown in Mount Pleasant. And so I thought, well, maybe a lifestyle retail center is going to come in there, and they're going to mimic a downtown. They're going to create plazas. All their stores will be open until 9 and 10 o'clock at night. They're going to do all of this kind of stuff. And I'm telling you, it will be very stiff competition. The one thing you have over them is your shops are organic. These will be chains. But they'll be open at night when people can shop. And I know a lot of people in Racine will be going there for it if that happens. And having done this for a long time, I can guarantee you that there's probably developers already working on it. And they're going to put it in Mount Pleasant. They're going to put it near there. They're going to see all this going on, all these jobs. And boy, this is South Lake, Texas. You have one chance to get this. And by the way, it works at night. So it's being open after 6. Now, when it comes to your other commercial areas, just to touch on, loved Toad Hall, loved what you have back here. I think it's really cool. I think there's still some vacancies. It will come around. We did have lunch over the Yard Arm. I would have never found it in a million years had not Dave told us about it. You know, and this was when we were done with the assessment. But you have some little cool places that are hidden gems. But the other areas, you know, like upstate, it says uptown. You know, I think this is uptown. Once you get there, there's no sign that says this. But I think in each one of these districts, they need to decide, we want to become art. Our focus is going to be art. Or they might say, our focus is going to be nightlife. Every one of these little districts needs to have a focus, and then you'll start to bring in the businesses. I think you need to fix Main Street first. Plus, Main Street is primarily destination retail. These could be neighborhood retail. This is where you go find your shoe repair, your accountant, your attorney, your, I don't know, any kind of local, more local oriented businesses, pharmacies, all those flower shops, all of those things would be great. You start creating neighborhood retail areas. And so, or they might have, you know what, when I saw this district, the first thing I thought is, we need to call Art Space. Art Space is based out of Minneapolis, and they work with cities, and typically they buy a building. They did one in downtown Michigan City. But you know what? I would go to Art Space and say, how would you like to do half of a district? They might be good. They would be really good if one of these wanted to have an art focus. And so I just think the potential of these districts, right now, it's pretty sad because they're mainly empty, but the architecture's there. I mean, a lot of these, you put in power underground, you put in all these light poles and everything. You know what? That's not going to put anybody in buildings. And you know what? You can make a downtown look beautiful, but it's going to be dead as a doornail. It's what's in the buildings that makes you a draw. So you've done one half, but not the other half. And so that's the challenge. You've got cool place, 6th Street Theater. I'm not too sure what happens there, when. There's no coming soon events. But you've got some cool stuff that are out in these areas. And by the way, there on the door, they did tell you what they had, or on one of the windows. So once again, I think that you have some great areas that will be up and coming. I still think you're focusing on Main Street. Get that going. And you already are. And then you've got things like this, like from the West 6th Street Association. I don't know that I'm promoting an association. I would just say, welcome to the West 6th Street. You know, and then promote that as a place, not an association. And so finally, last thing. Here's the problem. I think you're going to have a hard time finding anybody moving, investing in Racine because you're the Kringle capital. I think you don't want to throw it away. I think it's cool. I think it's fun. But it's not the reason we're going to come here. I think once we're here, like us, we absolutely had to go get one and try it. And I think that will always be one of the top activities to do. But, I mean, would you move to Cheddar, Wisconsin? I think it's Cheddar. No, it's Colby, Wisconsin. Do you want to move to Colby because they're about Colby cheese? See what I mean? And so I really hate to say this. I just think you need to be more than just the Kringle capital. I think you need to be cooler, younger. I mean, I even thought, what if you were an international, I'm just going to plant one seed. I thought, what if you were an international city? You have visitors coming here from India, from China, from Japan. I mean, you're going to have more and more foreign workers. You're going to have people coming from everywhere. I thought, what if you were more of an international city? And I thought, if you had a flagpole going down Main Street or even on 6th in Wisconsin, if you had an ethnic restaurant, in front of that ethnic restaurant, you put like a 14-foot flagpole and they put the flag of that country there. So that you were this cool, and nobody in Wisconsin, nobody in the Midwest that I know of is doing this international theme. And so I thought, what if you did? And so I made a list of things that I thought you could, everything in yellow you already have. I thought, man, if you could get, as a matter of fact, you even have Mediterranean, now they think about it, right? Right on 6th Street, isn't there a Mediterranean restaurant? And so you may have some of these there here. I mean, Dutch, Kringle, isn't Kringle Dutch? Oh, it's Danish, that's right. And Danish hate it when I say that. But once again, I just think that it wouldn't take much to fill in these blanks. I think it would be really cool. It's just one idea. I want you to be known for something that really sets you apart. There's 494 cities and towns in the state. What sets Racine apart from their 493? So I thought you might do a shop that does feng shui interiors. You already got Dover, you already got Dimples, you already got Vero, you already got Sheepies, you already got a lot of this. I just think it wouldn't take that much to fill it out and really be this cool international district. Just one idea. And then what you do is you start having events that are multicultural. I can imagine doing Cinco de Mayo or doing Oktoberfest. Chinese New Year. I can see all these things happening on Monument Square or Diwali or, any of these kind of cool things. St. Patrick's Day. We happen to be in Dublin on St. Patrick's Day. 300,000 people dressed in green. It's just fun. And so at the end of the day, what you need to do is, what is it you want to be known for? What sets you apart from everyone else? Because you're not the only one at the beach. You're not the only one with a waterfront on the lake. It's beautiful. You're not the only one with a great Main Street. But what sets you apart from everyone else besides Kringles? Okay? What do we need to do to own it? Brands are all about ownership. And this has nothing to do with logos and slogans. What do we need to do to own that? How many more ethnic restaurants or shops do we need to have if you went that way? And by the way, if you said we want our whole brand to be about kids and family, my first thing to say is, then let's move that splash pad in downtown. Let's put that ice rink there. Let's find a place to put a carousel. See what I mean? So whatever it is, decide what you want to be, and then you'll make it look like that and feel like it, and you'll get those kind of retailers in. Always start with that. And then, you know what? The days of strategic plans are over. Do an action plan, a to-do list. And everybody plays a role. It's the city, it's the chamber, it's Real Racine Tourism, it's downtown, it's Kiwanis, Rotary. They're all part of it. And you need to do that. And then in closing, you know what? I showed you the north end. The south end of downtown is pretty cool too. It is, what you have here is flat. Every time I look at this, I just go, oh my gosh. What you have here is amazing. Yeah, you have some little pockets where you need some help, but I've already heard that big old warehouses are starting to come down. I saw online, when we were doing our research, a business reporter, and I don't know if it was for Chicago or in Milwaukee, but the guy was on film saying, Racine is about to get a Foxconn, but if Racine goes down the path it's always gone down, they're going to waste another opportunity. This is a news guy, business reporter for the region saying this about Racine. You have to get these waterfront hotels. You have to get a convention center. You've got to finish your Main Street. You're already doing a great job with it. And then I'm sure these other districts, what you've got here is flat out amazing. Your parks, your amenities. We love the intimate feeling. It doesn't feel like 120,000 people within 5 miles. It feels intimate, and we love that. And so what you have is incredible. You got North Beach. I mean, you've got all the makings of, I mean, look at this. Sometimes you may take it for granted because you see the things that need help. You know what? You're already doing the wayfinding. Other than putting a cover over that plaza, I didn't give you one single thing in here that's expensive. Not one. You could probably do everything on there outside of wayfinding and without that covering over the plaza, if you end up doing that, for maybe $100,000. And I'll bet you 2/3 of that would be what private businesses need to do, not what the city needs to do. When I see private business saying, "City, what are you doing for me lately?" I go, whoa, 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 what are you doing for yourself? But what you have is incredible. You have a fantastic downtown that's well on its way. I think narrowing the streets, doing angle-in parking, getting it away from DOT so that you have control of it. I mean, I think it'll just blossom. And while you're working on that brand, create an assessment team. I just gave you 69. I don't know why I picked that number, but that's what we end up with. 69 suggestions of things you could do. Some of these you could combine. Some of them you're already working on. Turn them into recommendations. You know what? This whole exercise this morning has been a conversation starter. This is not meant to have all the answers. But I guarantee you, if you did most of these things, you'd have the best downtown in Wisconsin, and people would see Racine for something other than what they think of it today. And you could do all of this within 36 months. Today's the first day of the rest of your life. There are already people here at Foxconn already looking, are we going to live here or are we going to live somewhere else? Their corporate headquarters, they're moving to Milwaukee. Gee, I wonder if we would have done this 3 years ago if they would have put it right here. See what I mean? Now, I can't say that. Scott Walker might have something to say about that. But still, this is where they're going to work. This is where these families are going to be. I mean, today is the first day of the rest of your life. I hope you will take this and don't just say, well, he came in and preached to us. I hope you will turn this into a team and then really do something with this, because I really believe that if you do this, you will be fantastic. And I love this little quote. The best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago. The second best time is today. This is Friday. I hope Monday morning you say, let's go. And you know what? This will spur hundreds of millions of dollars of redevelopment into Racine. That's tax base that goes back to your citizens. You know, every elected official on the planet, particularly in this country, their focus is quality of life. Everybody, from the president on down, that's supposed to be the focus, quality of life. It takes money to do quality of life. This will do that. Your property values downtown will go up, your residential neighborhood go up, your schools will start to improve, and they will see Racine for what it really is, a fantastic place, and not what they've come to see in news articles about certain areas. I mean, it's what you have here is really, really awesome. And you know what? We do a lot of assessments, but I don't get to say that very often. And so with that, that's all I have for you this morning. Thank you so much. Thank you. I went a little over on that, so I'm going to let everybody go, but I will hang out. We'll hang out down here. There's some of us are going to meet in here for a little bit, but I'm willing to answer questions down here because I know some people have to get off to work and everything. But once again, thanks so much for caring about Racine and taking the time to do it. So thank you.